Welcome all. I will call the meeting of the Pawtucket School Committee to order at 6:30. Ms. Liss, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Bonillo. Yes. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yeah.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yeah.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up on our agenda, we have special reports of student representatives. Do we have someone here from Charles E. Shea High School?
Hello, I'm Zachary Pinto. I'm a junior at Shea, and I'm here to tell you guys some of the stuff that's been going on lately.
Great.
We had our Spirit Week just 2 weeks ago, and it went well and showed lots of school spirit. Our student council had a very successful bake sale to raise money for Rhode Island Pink Heels. On Thursday, we wore purple to join millions of Americans who wore purple on Spirit Day to stand against bullying and to show their support for the LGBTQ+ community. Many colleges and universities have been stopping by to give our seniors presentations on their programs and opportunities. The Rhode Island Upward Bound program visited our school November 1st to recruit new members. We finally held our senior picnic after it was postponed a few times, and it was a very fun night. Saturday, October 23rd, We Make RI held a Makers Fair in which students from Shea went and helped out. And vendors and guests were so impressed with their level of professionalism and their caring attitude. They made Shea proud, and they want to give a special thanks to Evan Stratus, Jemiah Gomes, and Isatu. A representative from the Boys and Girls Club came to Shea on Monday, November 8th, during advisory period to present their new programs called Members of Moguls. This is part of their workforce development program, and it's for students grades 9 through 12. The student council met to discuss positions and elections, and the junior class will be holding a battle of the classes the Tuesday before we go on Thanksgiving break. Tryouts for cheerleading will begin on November 15th and 16th, and our Key Club has some news that they would like to share with you all today. With some help of members, we were able to hang up our school's trophies and awards and bring back some Shea spirit on the first floor. We are currently making thank you cards for veterans and first responders. The goal is 500 cards, and so far we are on good track to meet that. We will soon be making blankets in which we will decorate and send out to homeless shelters. On November 8th to the 24th, we are holding a canned food drive in the school. We had a very successful bake sale on October, raising over $100. And Ms. Scarpelli is requesting for the freshman classes painting and designing walls for the freshman class, and would like the freshman class to sign a contract on the wall and at their graduation year, wearing their cap and gown and pointing to their commitment on the wall. Just a little idea. We're hosting our second monthly family engagement parent meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. in the auditorium. And the student council will be meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing what we would like to see in Shea's student council bylaws, along with the ideas for giving thanks on Thanksgiving this year. Tryouts for swim will be beginning soon. The boys cross-country season ended on Saturday at Pawtucket with Joel DeCruz going toe-to-toe with some of the best runners in Rhode Island in the state championship meet. Joel made history, being the first Shea qualifier in over 20 years. Throughout the season, he and all the other Shea runners demonstrated their skill and dedication to achieve, and they have earned some well-needed rest. Indoor track will begin right after Thanksgiving, and signups will be announced very soon. At a league meeting November 3rd, the Shea girls tennis team won the Rhode Island Interscholastic League Team Sportsmanship Award for Division III, which is voted on by all the coaches within the division. Many of the coaches expressed how much they enjoyed playing against our team because of how wonderful our Lady Raiders are. The boys football team was defeated Woonsocket on Friday, October 29th, 28-16. Bernard Parson had 2 touchdowns, one a 52-yard pass from Cameron Seaver, and the other was a 15-yard run from JDL Diaz. And our third touchdown, it was a 6-yard run to end the game, and it was a great win to celebrate our senior night and to enter the playoffs that weekend. That same night, our ladies faced off against our crosstown rivals, the Tolman Tigers, in a game that meant a lot to our ladies, as a win would secure a spot in the playoffs. The final score was 7-0, which secured their spot in the playoffs. And that wraps up just about all the news that I have for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, do we have a representative from William E. Tolman High School?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Johnny Perez, and I'm a senior at Tolman High School. So this evening, I'm very excited to share a few things regarding our school. For starters, Tolman held Successful Spirit Week from October 12th through October 15th. The chosen themes for the week were as follows: Tuesday, Team Jersey Day; Wednesday, Character Day; Thursday, Throwback Thursday; and Friday, School Colors Day. The week culminated with homecoming football game on Friday evening, and although the team lost, it was a great week. Secondly, the Tolman football team won their first quarterfinal playoff game against Mount Pleasant. They will play Classical High School this Saturday in the Division II semifinals. This game is scheduled to begin at 1 o'clock at Classical High School. Unfortunately, the girls volleyball team lost a tough quarterfinal match at Scituate High School last night. The team ended up losing 3-2 after a tough battle. Nonetheless, we congratulate them on a great season. The boys soccer team suffered a heartbreaking loss to Portsmouth in the first round of the playoffs. After the game ended in a tie, the team ultimately lost on penalty kicks. Now on to some better news. This Friday, November 12th, selected Tolman student athletes will receive the Key Spirit Award in recognition of their academic and athletic success, in addition to displaying great leadership and sportsmanship. Chosen by their coaches, the selected students are as follows: Kaiden Brown for boys cross country, Isabella Vargas for girls cross country, Christian Munoz for boys soccer, Vanessa Alzate for girls soccer, Matt Lacoma for football, Eliani Centeo for girls volleyball, and Ivy Parr for girls tennis. Quarter 1 report cards will be sent home later this week. And finally, parent-teacher conferences are scheduled for next Thursday, November 18th. The conferences will be held from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock that evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, do you have a representative? I see one from Jacqueline M. Walsh School. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Delana Jenkins, and I am a senior theater major at Jacqueline M. Walsh School for the Performing and Visual Arts. So we have had a crazy, exciting, hectic October. On October 19th, we had a successful meet and greet open house for our current students. On October 22nd, we actually had a pink out day that was national, and it was led by the student council. We had a goal of $500 raised in donations, but we actually ended up raising $600, and those will be donated to wearitpink.org and all of their foundations. The week of the 25th through the 29th, we had a couple of events, as well as a spooky spirit week, which had a bunch of just Halloween themed days. It was really great. On the 26th of that week, the Honors Club held the ultimate JMW student competition. And then lastly, for the events of that week, we had on October 29th, the Student Council held JMW's first ever Halloween bash. We are continuing our recruitment process for the 2022 to 2023 school year. Last week, we were at Goff Junior High, and this week we will be at Slater, Jenks, the French American School, and Sophia Academy. So again, after the last very jam-packed month, we are looking forward to a calmer November. First, we will be holding our Prospective Student Open House on Thursday, November 18th. This event will include student volunteers and teachers who will help guide these students and parents. And we are very excited to showcase the work of our students and share what we love about JMW with them. On the same day, there will be a R-Mark turkey dinner for our current students during lunchtime, so delicious. Next, our student council is planning a Thanksgiving food drive in partnership with the Pawtucket Soup Kitchen. We are collecting non-perishables with a focus on holiday foods and other important products such as socks and gloves and stuff to keep them warm. And lastly, on December 4th, students will be participating in our music program. Students that are participating in our music program will perform at Winter Wonderland in Slayer Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the student representatives. We'll move on to presentation. Dr. McWilliams?
Yes, we're going to have a presentation from Baldwin Elementary School. While they're coming up, I would like to first take this opportunity to present to you in person two new hires that started this week. Lamel Moore, if you could just stand and so Lamel is actually the Community Connections and Partnership Liaison. So he has been baptized by fire this week starting, and then joining him this week also is Renee Haggerty as our Title I coordinator. So we welcome you both to Pawtucket. Well, Renee's already been here forever, born and raised in. And now we have a presentation from the Baldwin community. So we have Dr. Edna Coyer and reading teacher Wendy Riordan, and then Christina Bianchi, the assistant.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I hope you see me here. This is Elizabeth Baldwin School. Address is 50 Whitman Street, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. That building was built in 1963, and currently we have 3 administrators, 62 teachers and staff, and 521 students, benefiting from all those programs that you are seeing. At Baldwin, our theme is #BetterTogether. And we have so many activities that you will hear from Wendy, but this is one thing that I am so proud as the principal of Baldwin School. We believe that we belong together, just like that milk and cookie. And we believe also that we can only survive and reach success when we are together. And that's the mantra at Baldwin School. Now here's Wendy for some of her spills.
The Baldwin teachers take part in professional development provided by Pawtucket School Department and other outside resources. And the teachers share and collaborate at weekly PLCs where they share ideas about how to best scaffold the instruction, which is why the scaffolding is there, to differentiate for all students and motivate them to be lifelong learners. Our first goal at Baldwin is to decrease the number of students reading below grade level. We want to encourage the students to enjoy and love reading as a choice and make it more exciting than their phones and their video games, which is a challenge these days. We want to encourage them to read to acquire information and strengthen their knowledge base so they can not only understand but could critique and challenge what they're reading. And then in turn be able to write about what they have read and showcase their understanding. And Edna, we'll go back to you to talk about our data.
Our beginning of year diagnostic data using iReady, we are on the rise and growing. That yellow portion meaning that those are the students, 44% are only 1 grade level below. So we are now working on that because we have this big hope for our students that we really only need a little nudge considering the things that happened this school year and the previous school year because of the pandemic. I am still very proud that 44% of my students are only 1 grade below their grade level. So also with our RICAS result, this is one thing that I'm so proud of. The state participation rate is 88% and Baldwin is 98.7%. So that is one thing my children really want to learn. They took the examination, they took the test, and now if we will be putting together those that are partially performing or partially meeting the expectation and those meeting the expectations, a little nudge and they will be more than half, almost 65% of our students will be meeting the expectation in RICAS ELA. Same thing with our mathematics, which the goal is always to reduce our students performing below the grade level. And those are the things that a teacher should be doing, that 1 to 8 that just passed. Those are the things that our teachers in every level from kindergarten to high school, those are the skills that every teacher should, every student should master, and the teachers are the instruments in receiving those skills, in making that a reality. Now, the overall diagnostic data in mathematics also, it shows that our students are on the rise and growing. And if we will be moving for our RICAS, that also shows a big hope because our students are participating. 97% of our students participated against the state, which is 88.7%. So I have that big hope with our students. And in our another goal, the ELL proficiency, we know, I got this from Sarah's thing. The number 3, multilingualism promotes culture. Baldwin students are mostly students who speak a different language. And you see that also in me. I came to this country when I am an adult and became successful. I can consider that this position is already a success. And I'm also always telling our students, look at me. You will be like me because I am a model that I could barely speak English. Now I am here in front of all of you and presenting. So I am telling my students that just try your hardest and you will succeed, because there's no reason for us not to succeed, because there's, in this country, everything is provided. We have all the materials and resources, and the only thing that we need is to persevere and do your hardest, because there's no reason for us to fail. And that's what I am always telling to our students at Baldwin. Now, those students that we found in our beginning of year diagnostics and RICAS, we have identified what are the needs, and through ramp up, which we will be starting on November 16, we will be providing support to all our students using those resources that you are seeing. And so, attendance again. Our school has some concerns about the attendance, but we found a solution on how to prevent absenteeism and tardiness. Our staff and teachers are constantly calling parents, visiting homes, and our nurse also is very good. After 2 days of absence, there is a call. Our secretaries also are doing their hardest to call. We do home visitations. We climb up to the 3-story houses and knock at their doors. And that's what the administrators are also doing. So that we can support them, we are using this integrated here of system of support, academically and behaviorally. And we have the SEL people who, and our school psychologists who are also good in monitoring those concerns. Now,
Oh, back to me.
it is Wendy again.
I get to brag about all the stuff the staff does. So in October, we had our first Friends of Baldwin meeting. The Family Engagement Committee, which I lead, helped to plan it, and it was a great success. We planned for 30 to 40 parents and ended up with well over 100, so even though it was a big last minute scramble for seats and for painting pumpkins, it was awesome. Parents listened to a presentation by Boys Town. We have been partnering with them for a few years now, and the parents also got a chance to paint pumpkins with their children. And we were able to talk to quite a few parents who are looking forward to helping and volunteering and becoming active members of our Friends of Baldwin. So next meeting is in a couple of weeks, and we look forward to having a lot of those parents come back and talk about how they can help us and our staff. You want to talk about this one, you know more about this than I do.
Okay, the fire department is really very good to us. They came to our building a few years ago and help our students. They mentor our boys who need some male figure, and not just boys, even those girls who wants to be fire women. So they came back again this year, and we are very glad that we have connected them to our students who would be servicing our community in the future, because all of them now wants to be firemen. And I am thanking these people also because they are also supporting the families. Actually, they will have some gifts for our families this Thanksgiving and for Christmas also. So thank you to the fire department if they hear me this time. Thank you.
We also have the Community Covenant Church, which came to us through a staff member, and they have been volunteers with us for a while. Just on Halloween, they came to the school and they helped clean up our schoolyard and our Baldwin garden. And pre-pandemic, they were actually volunteering in classrooms and helping out, and hopefully they'll get back to that. They also provide the staff with goodie bags on the first day of school, which is also awesome. It's usually filled with teaching supplies and a Dunkin' Donuts card, which we all love, especially on the first day of school. They've helped clean up our yard, like I said, and cultivate our Baldwin garden, and they've been valuable friends to the Baldwin community. And then we always have our Hasbro Day of Joy, which we love. And the older cool students that aren't supposed to like it love it, and it's priceless. They bring the kids each their own toy to bring home, and the Hasbro partners also have helped paint it and spruce up our cafeteria and gym areas. So they've been an invaluable part of the Baldwin community. And the student incentives we use at our school-wide, we have Baldwin eggs, which are given to classrooms for whole group behavior. We have Baldwin bucks, which are fake dollars that are given to individuals who show they're respectful, they're responsible, and they're ready to learn. And on Fridays, they can redeem their Baldwin bucks for a prize. And we have ringing of the bell. We have a bell that we put in our foyer, and students can ring it when they've reached a particular goal. We've taken pictures of the students. It's been put on Twitter and on the website and shared with parents. We do a student of the month. Pre-pandemic, it was a big ceremony. We invited parents. We had a big breakfast. We're not able to do that right now, but we have 3 student of the month winners right now for every classroom: a reading, a math, and a general behavior. And now at the end of lunch, once a month, they celebrate in front of their peers, and they get a certificate, they get prizes, they get sweatbands and a necklace that says Star Student. And in fact, we just had our first ceremony the other day, and I had 2 5th graders who were wearing their necklaces for like 3 days straight because they were so proud of it. So it's great. Books and Books of Wings are coming back again, and they read to every classroom, and they also are giving this time, I believe, 2 books to go home with every child, which is so important. Best Buddies, I really want to brag about. It's been 4 years at Baldwin. It's run by an outstanding special education teacher, Melissa Caraballo. The Best Buddies involves creating fun activities with students having disabilities and students not having disabilities together. They collaborate and create. They create projects, and they made the scarecrows last week, which are featured there. It's kind of hard to see, but they were proudly displayed in the media center for the entire school to come by and see. And our Best Buddies has the most students involved in a school. There's 200 plus, and the Baldwin won the Mass Rhode Island Outstanding Chapter Award and was mentioned at a leadership conference. So it's a great program and we're very proud to have that. And lastly, I can't say enough about the staff. Not only are they outstanding educators and caregivers, but they volunteer for multiple committees and help our families. We have the Family Engagement Committee, which we're doing a big snowflake making contest in December that the parents can do at home together with their child, and we're going to bring it in and we're going to have a big contest, display them. We have a lot of staff who volunteer to be mentors for new staff members. We have staff volunteer to do a check-in, check-out with students, which is a motivational system for students who benefit from checking in with a trustworthy adult at the beginning of a day and at the end of the day. We have canned food drives and holiday baskets to feed our family in November. We have a community closet to help kids that need clothes. We have a Christmas Adopt a Family program. The staff provides clothes and toys for families so the students have gifts during the holidays. And pre-pandemic, again, we had a multicultural night. We have family game nights. We have success nights. And we continue to try to do things to bring our families together with our staff to celebrate our successes, because we are #better together
at Baldwin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One comment. Dr. Koya, we are going to build, you and the staff at Baldwin, a building that is reflective of your commitment and your passion for the students you all serve. So good things coming for Baldwin.
Ms. Grant?
I noticed that you had, in regards to RICAS, you had mentioned that you had pinpointed, where the problems are and how you're going to work with these students to improve. Where do you find the time in your day to get that support for them?
We have the ramp up program,
Which is
which is before school. We have chosen, it's 15 students. We have 6 teachers who volunteered to do the ramp up before school, and they have the 15 students apiece. So 6 times 15, we have 90 students that we have identified to be needing support. And some of them just need a little nudge and they will be on the efficient level. And so we concentrated on those 90.
So in those 90 are all committed to coming in every morning and receiving that support?
As of now, we have received a lot of positive response. We will be starting it on November 16. So as of now, the forms that has to be returned are coming in, and there is a very positive response, because we are calling the parents too, and they love it because they will be sending their children at 8 o'clock. They will be fed breakfast, and they will not be late in coming to school because they are already there. So the problem of tardiness and absenteeism also is remedied by this ramp up program in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Baldwin. Next on our agenda is public participation. First signed up is Ms. Jennifer McCahey from Shea High School to speak on Tolman locker room makeover.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd just like to speak on behalf of the agenda item about the Tolman High School locker room makeover. I serve on the ad hoc committee for the new comprehensive high school, and we've been meeting for quite some time, a couple of months now. And right now, all renovations are on hold because of the decision about the comprehensive high school. Both schools need repairs and renovations and whatnot. The faculty at Shea has been very transparent with our concerns about the needs of our building and the things that need to be renovated. And understandably, with a comprehensive high school and the cost of that, it's been pushed off to the side right now until a decision has been made about that, with only emergency repairs that need to happen. So of course, when the faculty sees that this is an item for, the high school on the other side of the city to have their locker room renovated, when we at we at Shea need to have our stage repaired, we have some significant issues with other areas, it is a concern. So I would implore the committee to really think about where we're allocating our monies in terms of renovation, and to just ensure that there's equity in terms of allocating those funds across the city, and for those areas that are going to have a positive impact on student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Mr. Will Arboleda from the Mayor's Office on Tolman Locker Room.
I'll be nice and quick. I have something that I prepared. So thank you to the honorable members of the school committee for having me today on behalf of Mayor Grevian, who is very supportive of the Extreme Locker Room Makeover Initiative that will be brought forth to you by Mr. Daniel Shapiro, that is here in the back. The mayor and the administration had the chance back in September to learn about the opportunity for the Extreme Locker Room Makeover. And this project is very exciting and will be an amazing opportunity for our students. So the way that it works is that the Extreme Locker Room Makeover will work with public high schools to build new updated locker rooms that has a resounding effect on every student in the school, right? This renovation will help our youth to engage both intellectually and physically with a new space. And this project would serve essentially all of the students of William E. Tolman. So the proposed plan that we're in support of would be producing a television show through Mr. Daniel Shapiro, and he's going to provide more information to you all this evening that documents the transformation of the locker room and the participation of the students, as you will hear from him. So students will be chosen by the school to work with licensed architects, engineers, and design professionals to design and plan the project and to create this great new space, right? So it's not only they get this space, but they'll also work with professionals on different aspects of the creation of this space. So again, this is a phenomenal opportunity for our children and the community to be a part of something special. Furthermore, as Mr. Shapiro will explain, the plan will be of no cost to the school department and the city, as the financial obligations fall on the production team, and he'll be sharing some of that as well. So I'd like to thank Mr. Daniel Shapiro for selecting one of our Pawtucket schools for this endeavor. I hope we could do them all. I would also like to recognize Frank, who's been helpful in assisting us as well. So thank you again for allowing me to speak on behalf of the mayor and his administration, and we look forward to being able to provide any support or input to the school committee and the school department on this project as you need us. So thank you again and have a good night.
Thank you. Ms. List, there's no one else signed up for public participation? Okay. We will move on to old business action discussion items. First up, we have removed from table virtual instruction day plan ride. Been a motion to remove the virtual instruction day plan from the table by Ms. Moreno. It's been seconded by Ms. Bonolo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. We are now on to virtual instruction day plan ride. Dr. McLean?
Yes, Madam Chair and school committee members, we have before you a draft virtual instruction plan. So we are allowed to have up to 5 virtual instruction days for purposes of inclement weather or snow or an emergency. And so in order to access those 5 days, we have to have a plan in place that's approved by RIDE. So if the committee approves this plan tonight, we would submit this plan with the appropriate signatures of all stakeholders to RIDE for their approval. And in the event that it is, approved by RIDE, then if we have a snow day, we would be able to have a virtual snow day, up to 5 for a school year.
Motion approved.
Then a motion to approve the virtual instruction day plan by Mr. Reno. It's been seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Discussion. Ms. Bonolo.
Dr. McWilliams, do you want to discuss the availability of Chromebooks for these students? Yes. So currently, we are a one-to-one district. However, all those Chromebooks are in the schools in carts in classrooms. So students do have access to a Chromebook. We are in the process of waiting to hear from a grant that we applied for additional Chromebooks. So we would have a double set of Chromebooks. And in the event that that comes forth, then we would be able to have a Chromebook at home for those students who have need. And there's a survey that our IT department is sending out to families to address that. Now, if we were to have an approved plan and we decided to go with a virtual day, which would be a decision made by myself, and we work with the EMA, with Pawtucket. So whenever there's any kind of inclement day, we work with the emergency management in the city of Pawtucket and our own facilities department and determine what's going to happen as far as whether the students, it's going to be safe for them to come to school. In the event, and we're in a situation where we have a plan in place approved by RIDE to have a virtual day, let's just pick a date, December 18th, and it's going to be a virtual day. In an emergency, then we know in advance, then we would have those Chromebooks that we have on hand already go home with those students. Additionally, we know from most recently with the previous storm that we could be in a situation where we have no power. So we are also in the process, and part of this plan would be to identify, looking at our curriculum with our curriculum department, looking at where the students are projecting where they're going to be, and lessons, 5 particular lessons in ELA and math that would be within the scope that they would be in, that would be supplemental, that students could actually have in paper copy at home in the event that there was no power. Additionally, we do have a Kinvo communication tool, so there'll be a communication back and forth with the school and with teachers.
Is this, why are we looking at this, I guess, is my question. In the sense that, is it district-wide, or on occasions where 2 schools lose power, would we exercise this in that case?
We could. We have up to 5 days. So district-wide, if there was a major storm and we wanted to do a whole virtual for the whole district, we could. And if there was a particular school that was in, the thing is, it depends. Each situation is going to have to be, considered, because, but basically you can have 5 virtual days per school.
I guess that you just answered my question. Each situation is going to have to be considered. So what is this plan?
The plan is, well, I mean, I'm not sure.
No,
what the question is.
Like, does it address what happens when 2 schools in the district lose power?
So it addresses it addresses everything from what's going to happen with particular students, the communication tool between them and their teachers, between them and the school. Pretty much everything is addressed. What staff are going to do on that day.
I share Ms. Bonolo's. If a storm materializes Sunday night and we mobilize this plan Monday morning, we've got a significant amount of students home without access to technology to be able to complete.
So that's why, so you could technically have 10, bad weather days. 5 of them could be regular snow days at the end of the school year, 5 could be virtual days. So if a storm came in on a Sunday night at whatever time, and we felt like we weren't prepared, like if it came like quickly and we don't have an approved plan, or we don't have the Chromebooks ready to go home, or those packets, for students to be at home wouldn't be available and ready, then that wouldn't become a virtual day.
Dr. Blanche,
Yes.
can I just clarify? We approved this plan a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Around this time, or
Well,
in October? So is this
there
something
was-
we have to approve every year?
Yes, so
To submit to RIDE?
this was part of the whole complete back to school plan that we did last year. Do you remember last year?
I remember voting on
This was
this item.
this was just one section of the plan. It was actually 4 or 5 different parts of the plan.
Mhm.
And so just like we did, this virtual day was part of one of those sections of that plan last year.
And RIDE doesn't allow us to do a virtual instruction day at all unless we have this plan approved by them.
Correct.
This is to get approval from RIDE.
Yes, this is to submit the plan to get approval.
Yeah, one follow-up if I could, Ms. Moore. But in this plan, was there something that the parent signs off that the work was done?
So there is, we are working on that too as well, because it is going to be important to know, as we know from last year doing many virtual days, we need to know if, well, first of all, if it's a virtual day in this technology, then the teacher and the student are going to be interacting. So they're going to know that the student is present in their Google Classroom or in their Google Meet. But let's say that we are going to use a snow day and there's no power, and the student's going to be using one of their packets that they have at home, the paper copy, then the parent would need to attest that work. They would have to submit something back, and we're working on that communication.
All right, is there ever a scenario in this plan where some of our students are home taking a lesson on technology while others who don't have access to technology are having a parent sign that they completed the work?
So you're saying, is it possible that?
Well, I'm saying we have a significant amount of students who may not have access to technology.
Right.
And if we call a virtual snow day, how are they learning?
So so the thing is, if we're in a situation where there's a major snowstorm and like I said, you can only have up to 5, and one particular day, we're saying it's a virtual day, we might, we may not know when that decision is made, we may not know if your particular house doesn't have power.
Right, so in that case, I'm signing that I don't think it's fair. I think we either have a plan that says this is, but asking parents to sign any kind of form that their child completed work because we call the distance learning day and they don't have access to technology, I think is, I'm not voting for it.
Okay.
Ms. Fanon.
I'm
sorry.
One of the other things is, I know from having a granddaughter that young children don't actually always do what they're supposed to do. And no matter what mom and dad or any other caretaker tries to do, they're not going to do their homework. So we're sending out packets. At what point are we going to have an actual snow day?
You mean a real snow day?
A
like
real
you make it up
snow
at the end
day.
of the school? Yeah.
Because, historically we have 3, 5, not too many more than that. And the kids go sledding. So at what point do we have snow days for our kids and snow days for our teachers?
And we do have 5 built-in days at the end of a calendar year for those. Right. I understand what you're saying.
So I would rather see a snow day and, let everybody take a breath, and then use, if we're going to have a blizzard, then it's understandable that we would do some distance learning. I could understand that we would, try to continue the educational line, but periodic snow days are.
Could you explain that? You just said if we were to have a blizzard, we do some distance learning, but we wouldn't be able to have distance learning if we don't have a plan in place at RIDE.
Right. So what determines who calls the snow day and who calls the distance learning day?
So when, like in any weather, issue that we've been going through, I'm in contact with the city, the emergency management, and our own facilities department. And so if, based on that knowledge, a determination would be made whether or not it's going to be possible for us to, if half the city is in a blackout, then, a decision would be made Are we going to try to call that a virtual day and use packets? Are the packets already there? Are they ready? Each case is going to have to be, strictly individual. And like I said, it's 5 days. So we're not making a decision for a long period of time.
Ms. Mack?
So I have to admit, I'm not against us submitting a plan. I'm against submitting this plan because I don't think there is a plan. I think we need to work on this plan. And I think, kind of like Ms. Bonolo said, I think we maybe need to give our students so many snow days, maybe like 3, kind of build it in there. And then at a certain point, if we feel that we're getting to too many, I think it is a proven fact, look at our IS scores, distance learning did not work for the city of Pawtucket. There are too many distractions. It's just not something that is right for this district. And I think any day at this point, any of our students do distance learning, it hurts them. Life is continuing to go on. And I understand COVID was difficult, and it's still difficult. But the problem is, we still need to educate these children. We still need to make them able to compete in the real world. And with the scores that we're getting in, even prior to COVID, the scores that we had and the education that's been provided, or what we've been seeing, these kids are not getting what they need. So the kids need to be in school. Like I said, if it did go over the, maybe 3 or 4 days, but we need a solid plan. This isn't a plan. Let me ask you a question on what Mr. Chabot said in regards to signing. So Roberto signs for his son, but I'm at work, come home, change, go to my second job. I don't know what my son Charlie did all day. So what happens when Charlie goes to school the next day and he doesn't have to sign paper?
So as you heard from Dr. Koya, there's a strong communication in our school system. We have the communication tool Kinbo, but as you heard, our schools are reaching out to parents. Our schools are talking with parents. Our teachers and our administrators are making it they are making that such a critical component because they know that the parents and the community and the students, the collaboration that happens is critical. So,
Dr. Nickley, with all due respect, we all know not every parent in our district is engaged. So reaching out is great, but do you really think for one distance learning day, you're going to reach that parent when we just had a whole year of distance learning and we just received our results for RICAS, and our district isn't even proficient in math. So I don't know how you can sit there and tell me that I agree we're reaching out. I don't disagree with that. But what I disagree is that we're engaging the parents. Reach out and engaging are 2 different things. And if I'm working and my son Charlie's home and I go to a next job and you call me and you try to reach out, you're not going to go to the 3rd floor apartment for 1 day of distance learning or 2 days of distance learning. From what I got from what Dr. Clay was saying was when they noticed a pattern going on, 2 or 3 days, 1 or 2 days isn't really the pattern in regards to distance learning for snow day. So what happens when Charlie comes in the next day and I didn't sign his paper? What's the plan that we submitted to RIDE that we're going to make sure Charlie didn't do assistance learning, he could have, but he might not have, and it kind of didn't on the paper. So what's the plan for that?
So the plan, if the student is missing any gaps in learning, the plan would, again, to reach out to that parent, find out if the student was engaged, and by the way, if the student had the work, he could also bring that in, he or she could bring that in for evidence.
So what's the purpose of having the paper signed if it can just show the work?
It's the parent's involvement in the student's learning.
Okay. Well, I, like Mr. Charbonneau, I don't think this is a plan. I think it needs a lot of work. So, thank you.
I think our problem
Mr.
is
Knight?
arbitrary to say 5 days or 5 snow days and 5 whatever days. I think it's arbitrary. I think it's allowing RIDE to run our district again. And I think it's got to be thought out a little better. I think this is a fairly decent plan, but I don't think it goes far enough.
Mr. Larby?
For my Dr. McWilliams, please, I'm going to try to just like rephrase it and try to understand it a little bit. Let me know if I'm following you correctly. So essentially with this plan, so each year, where as a district in every school in this country is supposed to have a certain amount of days in which students are in school, right? So in New England, when we have storms, bad weather and climate days, snowstorms and stuff like that, we have the 5 regular days built in. But then beyond that, any day that is missed needs to be made up by the end of the year, which then can prolong the school year into June, potentially into July. Things are really crazy in terms of weather or challenges that is presented throughout the year. And a plan like this is set up basically to help to give a little bit of a safety net so that we don't run into issues such as that towards the end of the year, or in opportunities where when we know something is coming in advance and we can get technology out to students and prepare for a virtual day, whether it may be, because some snowstorms you're unsure on whether or not it's going to be one that is going to black out the city, or something that still may require schools to close down because of parking bans and things of that sort, but still give us the opportunity to have a virtual day instead of a full out snow day, in order to save that potential snow day for one that we may really need it, in order to help make sure that we don't go too far into the end of the school year.
So could I respond to that? We don't go past June 30th.
Okay.
So, that would, it ends at June 30th. So if there were more than that, I really don't know how the state would handle that. Now, you bring up something that's really critical that I actually had forgotten about, the parking bans. We are one of the districts in the state. I don't really think there are any others, but if there are, I would certainly like to know, that uses our schools for parking bans. So oftentimes, where other schools could be in school, we might not be able to be in school because of the parking ban and when it's lifted, and whether or not we have the wherewithal to get all of those 16 buildings, parking lots cleared out. So that's a very, very good point.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Because I don't want it to sound like I'm against it because we may have half of the city without power. My concern is, what if there's too much snow to have school and the whole city has power? There is a segment of our student population that doesn't have access to this technology readily available at home. And I think it's too easy to say, we'll take a virtual day and, well, we have packets, or maybe those kids didn't get packets at home. So I think there's gotta be a mechanism in which we're able to ensure that if we call a virtual day, every student in the district has access, equal access to what every other student is looking at. And I don't know how you achieve that, but I can't support something that allows some students to view it online with a teacher instructing them and other students to sit at home and navigate through a paper. I would just as soon give the kids a school day, snow day.
Ms. Manola?
When does this need to be submitted to RIDE?
Well,
Is there a definitive date?
no, it could be submitted at any time. We wouldn't be accessing any virtual day until we had an approved plan.
Motion to table?
Second.
There's been a motion to table by Ms. Manolo, then seconded by Ms. Mack. Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
No.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. Motion carries 6-1, virtual instruction day plan is tabled. The next item is approval to change IT equipment type of purchase. Christina, are we doing a show and tell?
Yes, if you don't mind, I'll be very quick. So just get me a little nervous here, but I just noticed that was at the end. I think I've been nervous here the whole time. Let me calm down. So last year, the committee was very gracious to allow us to move some of the money that we had in surplus into technology for the use of purchasing some projectors as well as whiteboards for the classrooms. And we were doing that in schools where renovations weren't going to take place, at least for a while. Since that point, the boards have been ordered, the projectors have been ordered. However, that chip shortage comes up again. I know everybody's tired of hearing about the chip shortage. So, and I've contracted the vendor that we purchased through and everything else, and they're still somewhere out on one of those cargo ships somewhere. So I started doing some investigation. I'm glad that actually I think it's something that's worked to our benefit. I'm just going to flip this around. Because another option that we started looking at, something that before was a bit expensive, was interactive displays. So what you see here in front of you, this is an interactive display. This is by Samsung. It's called a Flip 3. So I believe, and my belief is that it's going to give teachers so much more than what you see here, which is what we would be producing. But it would have been a whiteboard on the board that would have been mounted, and on top of that, it's the short throw projectors, like we did in some of our classrooms. This device here that you're seeing in front of you, this responds by a lot of different mediums, but this is just one of the things that comes with it is a pencil. So with this pencil, I can draw on this. I can highlight what I'm doing here, instruction, and if I make a mistake, I can also erase. The beauty of this board, what I just did there, I can't do with the projectors we were going to get. I can't do with the whiteboards. But the ability to do so much more, giving you an example. I was playing with this a little earlier today, the last couple of days, and these are just some examples that we have here. And the reason that this is called a flip is if you think of the flip paper, you go up into a flip chart and you just flip. So that's the way this works. So this is kind of like endless boards. So I can take the information I have on here, I can write on here if I need to. By the way, this is nothing special here. It looks like a special pencil, but a lot of schools have now started to use, because of COVID, they started using things even like Q-tips, because Q-tips are fairly inexpensive, and you can have each student use one. And if you notice this Q-tip, if I take this Q-tip, that's my highlighting, and that's just one of the options. With the highlighter, I can go a little darker, I can change the highlighting, the colors. If I take the other end of the Q-tip, I'm just going to break it off. Now it's a thinner, so it recognizes the size, and now it becomes a pencil or the pen. But it's much more than what you see here, because here's a lesson that a teacher might work on with their students, learn the days of the week and planning out the week. So what you see here, as a teacher, I've already planned my lesson out, and I can go to this board and we can talk about what's due on which day of the week. If I'm making checklists, I can do that. Everything that you see here, these are called forms, you can bring in your own. So you can go on the internet, bring in any picture, anything else like that. On top of that, if I need to go to the internet and bring up something from the internet, by the way, no computer, my computer is not attached to this, everything I'm doing is without my Chromebook. But notice that I can go out to the internet, I can go to a YouTube video, I can play a YouTube video.
Vaccinated, I feel like I have
I can,
being able to just literally
I can
exchange
change the website.
that physical touch.
I want to be somewhere tropical.
Honestly, COVID was ruining the vibe. COVID that I write, I got /community.
Right to the site that I came from. What I'm doing here, if I want to work with the children, for instance, if this was a lesson here and I had them and I wanted them to annotate something that was on here, a story, what I can do is I can take this and I can annotate right over this. Okay, so that blue line that just went in, now this becomes writable. I can say here, what happened here? I can do a lot more with this board. So I just wanted to kind of give you the sample of some questions. What is an interactive board? This is doing, and I can actually have, this board here has 20 senses. So I could have 20 people come up here right now and draw on this at the same time. But it has so much more use. Think of our art classes and places like that. A lot of times we don't think of those rooms. So one of the things that I can do is, sorry, put it into that. I put it into that overlay mode and I forgot to take it off. So there we go. But when I go into brush mode, not an artist myself at all, but if I wanted to do some oil painting onto this board, really nice, pick the colors, pick what you want to do, and it becomes something that I can actually now use my hands to draw some oil onto this board. And just by using that. So it's got a lot of functionality. Everything I do here, I can take a snapshot out of it. The nice thing about this board is because it's connected to the internet, as a teacher, if I didn't bring my Chromebook to class that day, I'm still using it. So I just wanted to show you what it's about. I've been working with Samsung, because that's what this board is, not a vendor. Once we get the approval, we get into the three pricing structure to be the best, but Samsung is the manufacturer that makes the boards. So because they're really anxious about Pawtucket, their pricing has been very, very aggressive, which will benefit by that. And the nice thing about this is they have them in stock. So my request here is changing it, and I felt that because I asked you for boards and I asked you for projections before, I felt coming before the committee to change that into this model was what was the right thing to do. Any questions?
Second.
There's a motion to approve by Ms. Grant. It's been seconded by Ms. Marino and Ms. Bonolo. We're in discussion, Mr. Knight.
What's the cost for these? Right now versus what it's costing us to project it.
Great question. Right now, between the projectors and the whiteboards, I'm within about $18, the difference. Where I think we'll save is in installation. So we had to put money aside for the installation cost, and to install this, which would be one item on the board, as opposed to the projector and the whiteboard, I believe that's where we'll save there with the installation cost.
Can you clarify that, Hirsch?
Sure.
So it's not going to be on rollers?
I actually have reached out, talked to different people, actually have spoken with Mr. Beaupre as well. And in some of the schools, it could be an option. I think the issue we have in some of our buildings, once again, this isn't the new renovation schools, is, as you can see, this does take up a bit of space, right? And it's a little bit of a tripping hazard and everything. So the goal was to take this board and mount it where we were going to mount the whiteboards in the classroom.
Because I do teach with one of these, and I agree, it's amazing. And I mean, one thing you didn't show is, as you're looking at PowerPoint. So if you just decide as a teacher to just be going through your PowerPoint,
correct,
your PowerPoint is now also able to be written all over. So, you can have a PowerPoint all loaded, and I teach with it, and then I can write, and I can save that for the next class that I teach with. and have that all saved, and you can, and so yeah, it's amazing. But some of them sit completely unused because the faculty just, well, they're not used to them, and so they don't teach with them at all, and they're mounted in rooms, and other people are sometimes like, well, I wish I could get one. And so what kind of professional development do you think?
Great question. I didn't want to take up a lot of that time there, but one of the things that is Samsung is committed that the other part that will be benefiting from the Samsung board as opposed to us hanging the projector and hanging the board is Samsung will do all the professional development for us as part of the package. So there's no extra cost for that. The other thing that the board itself has, you bring a great question with the PowerPoints. I could log into my Google account and use my Google Classroom right there, but you're right. I could hook up my Chromebook to this, display it that way, do all the annotations. The other part that this has is, so if right now this was my classroom and I have my 28 students and they're sitting there with their Chromebooks, I can actually connect all 28 of them to this board. And then I could say, okay, 4 in the back, show me your math problems. And right over here, I have, and I say, okay, I already labeled one as Aaron, a Jay. I could click on those and your screens would actually display here at the same time. And I could show the class what everybody did. They could come up. So there's a lot of things. I know there was a very long agenda. I was trying to keep it within my 5 minutes. I know I didn't do that, so I apologize for that. But great question about the pricing. Before this board, if you go to CPWG, you go to any of those vendors right now, it's at over $3,000 a board. I don't want to get into the pricing and everything because Samsung is working with that to bring it to the same price of the board. And the part that you bring up is a valid point because that's always been one of my objections. So I'm going to say I'm somebody who's turned, right? However, with this board here, if I don't use all of these other features, I would still get the projection and the teachers are regularly using right now. So in other words, I'm not losing anything because all of our classrooms, we make sure all of our classrooms have a projector and all of our classrooms have a document camera in there for education.
Mr. Hall?
While you're there, can you talk about the warranty?
Sure.
As well as impact resistance for students who tend to bump into things.
Yeah, so this board that you're seeing right here, and you always see when people demonstrate something and something always goes bad, I'm hoping this is not the time, but this board has a certain impact resistance. The good thing is we don't own it yet. So, so it does have a certain impact resistance. It is made with a special film over this board, so if something were to happen, it's like that safety glass, how it impacts in, so it doesn't hurt students. So the other thing is with the projector we were getting, it was a 3-year warranty. This has a 5-year warranty, and of course the manufacturer has a 50,000 hour on the panel itself. And that's based on 16/7, which means that you would be using this panel for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I would love to say that this panel will be here longer than I will be because that would be sort of a 30-year, 20 to 30 years that panel would be there for our students to use. I think that there's a lot more that we can use. You can set up your phone to it and everything else. When it came down, there's a vendor right now that's not too happy because I said hold, about canceling the order. However, you know what? They're going to bid on it just like the other companies to be able to bid on it. So I think it'll give our teachers so much more. The problem that I see going forward is I'll probably be coming to you at some point and wanting to do the classrooms that because I think, but once again, we're trying to put the tools in the hands of the teachers that don't have these tools. And I think that's very important. I think that it's something that's well worth the money.
Mr. Knight.
Is this something that we could ask for reimbursement on?
Sorry. I don't think we would have any reimbursement on this. Once again, I'm not asking,
I do want to, because I think sometimes, yeah, I'm not asking for any additional funds for this right now. You had already granted that, purchase. I just felt that in order to change it, I don't want to put the bait and switch and say, oh, where did these come from? It's like, oh, I approved this, but I didn't approve that. So that's why I was coming for the committee. So I'm not asking for additional funds for that.
Mr. Knight, I don't believe so. I don't think there's any reimbursement for that.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Liz, will you take a roll call?
Ms. Manillo?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes. The motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to school committee policy, second passage, BEDD, rules of order.
Motion to approve.
Did you have a question?
No, I was gonna say to take them all together.
Oh, there's only one.
I know.
Okay. Mr. Larby? Well, there's already been a motion to approve. I don't know if we have any discussion on this.
Second.
Okay. There was a motion to approve by, did I already say who it was? Okay, Mr. Charbonneau is seconded by Ms. Grant. Is there any discussion on this second passage? Mr. Knight?
Even though this is supposed to be, services rules were made, have we got an actual copy of them anyway?
We will make sure that every school committee member has copies. We do have some. I think we have enough for everyone. And if not, we'll order more.
I think we're asking us to approve this before we've even seen it. And I think that's completely out of order. Let's put it that way.
I believe Mr. Conley said at the last meeting that it's a new edition. It's not a different book. It's just the updated.
But they changed if it's a new edition.
I just have a problem.
Okay, it looks like that. It's right behind you.
Is that the new
The
edition?
name has changed.
That's fine, I've seen that before. But what I'm saying, did we see their changes?
This is the changed one. But okay.
Has
Yes.
anybody seen it?
The policy committee has.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vanilla.
So you want me to vote on it without seeing it?
Well, Steve's the chair of the policy committee. Lee's on it, I'm on it, and we have some educators on it, so it's whether you trust the policy committee or not.
Okay, so the rest of the school committee doesn't have a right to know what's in it.
Mr. Knight? Thank you. So is there any questions on the policy?
I'll make a motion to table. It's not that important at this point because we haven't been operating on it.
The motion does not have a second and it fails. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Lisey, please take a roll call on the second passage of BEDD.
Ms. Manillo?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Knight?
No.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, motion carries 6-1. We have new business action discussion items, RIDE Lead District Support Program.
Yes.
Dr. McWilliams.
Thank you. So, Madam Chair and school committee members, you have before you an MOU, the Pawtucket School Department with RIDE regarding the district support program. A week and a half ago, the commissioner announced that there was going to be a support program for those districts that were highly hit by COVID. And this particular MOU, if this committee approves it, would allow for Pawtucket to have up to an additional matching fund up to $4 million. And the agreement that we would make would be to use the ESSER funds matching up to $4 million towards the LEAP initiatives. So I did want to recognize that we do have Deputy Commissioner Kelvin Roldan in the audience and his assistant, Christopher Redden. And we actually had a meeting right before this regarding this support program. And I do believe that it is in the best interest of our school department to work and have the opportunity for additional funding and to work with RIDE on this district support program. So what you'd be approving would be the MOU, and then over the next several weeks, we would be working with RIDE and our district team on a program and a plan to look at what we need to do to align ourselves with the LEAP priorities, but also with the intention of raising student achievement and addressing the concerns that, much of what we've heard tonight about what we need to do for our students. Just so you know, LEAP stands for Learning, Equity, and Accelerated Pathways. And so the goal would be to focus on equity, expanded learning opportunities, instruction, student well-being, student engagement, talent development, and school improvement. Those are the priorities of the LEAP initiative. I will say that we do have a strategic plan that we brought to you, I believe, in August, and much of our strategic plan had already started to align with these initiatives because we had heard last spring about the priorities that RIDE was moving in this direction.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a motion to approve the LEAP District Support Program MOU by Mr. Knowles and seconded by Mr. Moreno. Discussion. Ms. Grant.
So what would happen is if we spend up to $4 million, they will match it.
Yes.
And then we have, it has to be all completed and spent by 2023.
I believe is it 2023 or I think it's 2024. This is Deputy Commissioner Dr. Kelvin Roldan.
I'm just wondering, does it have to be, does the program have to be implemented in one done? I guess what I'm trying to say is, so say we have it's to support someone. So after this particular period of time, that person would turn around and or those. So I guess what I'm trying to say, we would have $8 million to spend, but after 2024, we're not going to have that extra $4 million. So then that additional would fall into our budget if the support continues to be needed.
So, Madam Chair, first of all, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to join you, Superintendent, honorable members. Thank you for the opportunity to join this evening. My name is Dr. Kelvin Roldan. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for System Transformation. If you'll indulge me for 1 second, I also want to take the opportunity to thank you for your service, to thank teachers and acknowledge all the work that you have done over the last year and continue to do in what is still clearly a pandemic. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and thank you for all your work. So in regards to your question, this is all part of stimulus dollars that are coming from the federal government. Specific to this one is related to ESSER 3. ESSER 3 is, you have an allocation that is coming to the district already, and it's all connected to the LEAP strategies already. The team here has been doing a great job of already working to align the strategies connected to that work, because that is the expectation that we have from the agency across the whole state of Rhode Island, not just for Pawtucket. What we have done as an agency, in addition to that, in order to align to communities that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 to a set of metrics, Pawtucket being one of them, we have taken 50% of the agency set aside, and we have said we are going to devote those resources to those very specific communities. All ESSER 3 dollars, not just these dollars, are scheduled to essentially go away in 2024. So what we are doing essentially is taking these dollars, matching, working collaborative with the team here to set priorities and set spending priorities over those 2 years. We're also working to ensure that we're not creating a cliff, which is what you were talking about, in terms of the kind of expenditures that we're looking at. So, we don't, our plan and our goal is not to say to your superintendent, because at the end of the day, it is a mutual decision, and we're never going to do anything that the superintendent and the team are not looking to do, because it's all going to be aligned. Not looking to say we're going to hire an additional 100 individuals, so that then a couple of years from now, you're trying to figure out exactly how you're going to maintain those additional 100 individuals. That's not by any means the intent of this, and we are being mindful in terms of what kind of planning and expenditures we're putting together in partnership and in conjunction with the team here, so that exactly what you're suggesting doesn't happen, which is that you are going to then have to look forward to carry an additional set of expenses that you were not anticipating.
Mr. Charbonneau, Ms. Bernardo.
Who is Proving Ground?
Proving Ground is an organization out of the Center for Education Policy and Research at Harvard University. It's a national organization that has expertise around improvement, but not just improvement, but highly connected to data capabilities and analytics, as well as evaluation. So they are our partner in terms of whatever we collaboratively decide in partnership with the districts, to dig in so that we are able to then discern how is implementation going, to ensure that we are doing exactly what we said that we were going to do, and at the end of the day, achieving the outcomes that we said we were going to achieve.
So they're the vendor in this MOU, they're the vendor.
In this MOU, they're a partner. They are a vendor of the state, not of the district.
But we will be sharing district data with them.
You would be sharing data that is specific to the work that you would be doing with them.
Right, and I appreciate you making that distinction for me, because that goes to my next one. I think the whole MOU is very vague. It doesn't say we'll be sharing data that is specific to this. It says we'll be sharing data, enters into a mutually agreed upon data sharing with Proving Ground if the sharing of district-specific data becomes necessary.
That's correct. District-specific data related to district-specific projects.
Who determines the necessity of it?
So we have, of course, the Department of Education has a lot of access to data, right? So you have a lot of access to data. A lot of the data that we will be utilizing is already publicly available, to be frank. What the additional data may be is, like, for example, if there's a determination that we're going to go a little deeper in talent development, in the pipelines and what that looks like, we would then have to create specific measures for what that would look like to collect that specific data. So it would be done in conjunction and in partnership with the district for that very specific project.
Okay, and these funds are available to us now?
These funds are actually available. Yes, once we move forward with the agreements and the planning work that we are going to do with the team here in Pawtucket, the dollars would be readily available.
When do we expect that date to be?
We're actually working on this right now.
No, I was just going to say, so the application for ESSA 3 hasn't come out yet, but it's expected to come out before the end of November.
So these dollars are tied to ESSA 3?
Yes, sir.
But the application to apply for the money hasn't even come out yet? But we're going to approve an MOU on how we spend the money?
Thank you.
Okay.
So the timeline, so all the superintendents have already received all of the preview of the questions related to ESSA 3. So all of this information has already been provided to superintendents, including the allocation, specific allocation that is driven through Title I for how much districts are entitled to receive already under ESSA 3. So the application is not live in the technical in the system. However, you already have.
Charbonneau's point, this, as he mentioned, are we agreeing to how we're spending the money, or are we agreeing to an MOU that if we spend up to $4 million on these LEAP initiatives, we will receive matching money from RIDE?
You're agreeing to participate in the program, which allows you access to an additional $4 million, which would be done in partnership conversation and in conjunction with the district. We would not be, we're not obligating you to say, this is exactly how we're spending the dollars right now. because you would be, as a school committee, your allocation would be coming to you for approval in the
Manolo?
ESER 3 process.
Ms. Bonolo and then Ms. Moore.
So that was some of what I was going to ask. We have the 4 million in ESSER 3.
So like you said, it's done in a grant program called Acceler Grants, and later on in this agenda, Melissa will be talking about the ESSER 3, but we physically don't have that. What we have are some information that we're going to provide to the committee in our next agenda item about ESSER 3. But there is the districts, as she will share, has been allotted a certain number of dollars, and I don't know if you would like to.
It's 31.8 million.
Okay, so they're talking about 4 million of that. Okay, which we will have either way, with or without, and another 4 million, up to 4 million. So my question is, who determines? So if the superintendent comes to you and says, I have this project that I need to take care of, say at Baldwin, Cunningham, Agnes Little, Winters, and this is what we're going to do. This is what we want to do. You say yay or nay?
No. So let me just be clear. You as a committee have a specific allocation. What we are trying to do, you are most likely in your planning for ESSER 3 already doing a lot of what's in the ESSER 3 lead connected strategies. Why? Because that is the guidance that we have already given as an agency. So no, not in the totality. What we would be doing is taking $4 million, matching $4 million, working together to align those strategies, which you probably already have, and really just giving you an additional $4 million of additional resources to probably go a little deeper in some of the strategies.
So where does the other company come in if they're not working in conjunction with our superintendent and our educational team?
I'm sorry?
So could I think I know what you're going back to Proving Ground and West Ed. So part of this plan would include a superintendent's institute, so that we would, our team would be meeting with these agencies. And then the other part of the plan would be workshops district-wide with stakeholders to meet and examine what we need to do to move our district forward, develop a plan, and then whatever those resources that were needed, we have access up to $4 million from ESSA, and then a matching grant of $4 million.
And if I can add, Superintendent, part of what we are doing with Proving Ground here is that there is a whole upfront amount of work related to data analytics, for example. So there is a bunch of, like, for example, Christopher, my chief of staff, is one of the strategic data fellows at Harvard. This is what is housed under the center. So there's going to be a bunch of connected folks who are going to be looking very specifically at very specific sets of data to make sure that you have what you need related to that work in a deep and connected manner.
So nobody will dictate to our district what we have to do.
No, no one is dictating. It really, truly is. I mean, as superintendent and the team can perhaps attest to it. We met with for 2 hours this afternoon, and I was somewhat joking because I didn't get a vote, I didn't get a marker, right, Ron? So we really are looking at this as a very collaborative, engaged, hands-on, bottom-up, not top-down, engaged process where we are really partnering to, from a context perspective, that is your context, engage with you in a collaborative approach to arrive at solutions and work on those solutions for the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
So we're not talking about the commissioner coming in like she did in Providence and telling us what we have to do?
No, sir, this is not an oversight conversation. This is a conversation about engaged collaboration. And again,
There's no oversight involved in this one.
I beg your pardon?
There's no oversight involved in this one.
Well, there is the fiduciary oversight that we always carry with any federal funds, but in terms of us dictating and imposing a certain set of impositions on you, no, sir, that's not the intent.
So just to clarify to me, so the work that Proving Ground does will be specific to Pawtucket.
The work that Proving Ground will do will be very specific to the solutions that we're working with you on.
So not specific to Pawtucket?
Specific to the Pawtucket context, yes.
Okay. So the work, the $4 million we put up and the $4 million matching is going to be program solutions that are unique to the Pawtucket district,
That's correct.
not shared with the other participating districts, or not part of an overrun marching umbrella that they present a body of work and say, here's what all of the districts who participated get. And some of that may not be germane to Pawtucket.
I appreciate your question. So let me, and it gets very deep in what the process is. So there may be occasions in which Pawtucket may be working on an issue that is similar to another community, which will provide an opportunity for engagement and learning between the superintendent and the teams that are connected. However, it doesn't, even in, let's, for example, if you're implementing the same curriculum here as you might be in another part of the state, the context for the implementation work associated with that curriculum varies from district to district because the variables for implementation vary from district to district. So this is going to be a highly tailored, contextualized approach to working with districts, which is very different from work that previously has been done in the agency, and I acknowledge that.
Are there other districts that have already passed this? And do you know who they are?
So we have one district who has already committed to us and has already signed their documents, and that is the community of Woonsocket. There's another district that is currently, in a similar fashion as you are discussing this in front of their own school committee. And I want to say that the majority of them will be reviewing this in the next week or so.
And one last question.
Yes, sir.
So every district's coming to the table with 4 million?
No, sir. It really depends on the allocation size of the district. Grants vary and opportunities vary from $1.4 million to $4 million.
Okay. And my last thought is because you had mentioned in your comments that some of this we're already doing because you gave us kind of the answers ahead of time. Right. So some of the program work associated with this is stuff we're already doing.
Potentially, yes.
So I'm concerned that if we invest the money, then how do we make sure there's no
duplication,
overlap and duplication and the whole bit?
I appreciate that question. That is why we're literally hands-on in partnership with your superintendent and the team to make sure that there is alignment and we're not duplicating but value add in the process. So it may be that you have selected a particular strategy associated with, for example, social emotional learning. So you have the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, you have your ruler work, which is very exciting work, I will say. You know, maybe we are working with a different subset of a student population, or perhaps even the parents associated with that same practice level of support. Or perhaps we're working in a deeper passion with a set of teachers in order to go a little deeper in terms of how we create greater connectedness for student engagement. So it really is meant to be highly tailored and very specific to the needs of a particular district.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Please.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Listy, please take roll call vote.
Ms. Spinola.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Next up on the agenda is Extreme Locker Room Makeover, Tolman High School. And I do understand, committee, that we are approaching that 2 hour. I was thinking after this item, we would take a brief recess, if that's okay? Yes, okay. So Extreme Locker Room Makeover, Tolman High School. Dr. Williams.
I'll introduce, yeah. So I'm asking Mr. Dan Shapiro to come forward, and several months back, Mr. Shapiro approached myself and Frank, the athletic director at Tolman, and the school principal with this initiative of an extreme locker makeover, which is a potential film or television production. And we, at that time, it was just in its beginning stages, and he has come back and asked to share this out with the entire committee, as it does, affect our facilities, and we are in a little bit of a flux right now. It would be important for us to look at this as an opportunity and whether or not it's something that we would be moving forward with at this time. So Mr. Dan Shapiro.
Thank you very much. I'll start by saying it's certainly hard to follow a presentation with the world's coolest board, so I'll do my best. So I understand your time is valuable, and I'll get to the point and try to make this as brief and clear as I possibly can. Just a very little bit of background about myself. I'm a Deputy Associate Attorney General in Connecticut, the Connecticut Attorney General's office, and my unit deals with all health and education issues. I'm also a basketball coach, and I'm a varsity tennis coach at the local high school. So I'm around high school kids all the time, and I've done that for more than 15 years. The plan would be to produce a television show which documents the renovation of the locker room at Pullman. The idea has always been to engage the students both intellectually and physically in this project, to not have it be a project where adults are doing something for the students, to have them actually engaged. And I listened carefully to a lot of the comments about being in the real world and getting real world experience and educating kids. And I'm not an educator, nor do I pretend to be, but I do understand the value of real life experience. And getting kids on design committees where they're meeting with architects and engineers and plumbers and electricians can be invaluable in terms of opening doors and opening opportunities for them. I've assembled a team. They're smart people. They're ready to go. What this project needs now is a school to say yes and partner with me. There will never be any cost to the school district. That's not what this is about. This is about going out and seeking funding and seeking a network. And I've made lots of major connections. I met with producers at ESPN that love the idea. One of the main things she said is you have to have a school. Find a school that's willing to say, hey, if you can go raise this money, if you can do X, Y, and Z, we'll participate. Participate means having access to administrators and teachers and students and helping to identify kids that are intellectually curious, that want to be a part of something that could be incredible. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I could do it. And there'll be nobody that will work harder to make it happen if you say yes. So I wouldn't waste my time. I have a job, I have coaching, I'm doing a million things. This is something I truly believe in, and that's why I'm here to present it. I've seen the school, I've had a tour of the school, I've seen the locker rooms, they need repair. It would be an incredible opportunity, I think, to move forward. There's lots of pieces to it, like getting a celebrity host, like getting a network, like getting funding, that all have to move forward at the same time. And that's the work that I would do and my team would do. I'll stop and pause for a second because I'm sure there's some questions, and then I can continue a little bit more if you'd like me to.
Motion to approve.
The motion to approve by Mr. Nolan, and seconded by Ms. Marino and Mr. Larrabee. We're now in discussion. I saw a few hands, Mr. Larrabee, Ms. Grant, and Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, I'm just curious, why Pawtucket, why Tolman?
It's an excellent question. So I'm friends with someone named Drew Bernard, and Drew Bernard was a coach here for a few years. And when I told him about this project, he said, I have a school that you might be interested in. And he introduced me to Frank, and I met with Frank. I met with the principal, I met with the mayor, I met with the superintendent, and I started to get involved. So I was introduced to the school by Drew Bernard, who coached here for a few years ago.
Ms. Grant?
I have like three or four questions. So this isn't sold already. So there isn't like someone who's bought this show already. So it's not guaranteed that this is going to be a show.
That's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. One of the things, for example, I met with Kelly Spellman, who's a producer at the Rachel Ray Show. And initially I met with her to get ideas about things, etc. And I talked to her for an hour and a half about what the idea was. And 4 days later, she wrote back to me and she said, I gave you all this different advice, but I want to produce this show. I think the idea is brilliant. I want to be part of that. She's a producer on the Rachel Ray Show. She knows the business. She has contacts. She's part of ABC. There's all these different connections that I'm waiting to explore once I have a school that says, go do the work.
Is it the whole locker room that you would be doing over? Or is it just like maybe a corner or an aisle where we would maybe end up afterwards having to complete it?
No, it's the whole locker room. Two of the key components of the idea are it's the boys and girls locker room. And this isn't about varsity sports. This is about physical education classes, which almost everyone participates in, and it's the whole locker room for sure. And I've met with someone from Colliers, for example, that talked to me about what you would need, how much per square foot, et cetera. I met with the executive director of Colliers in Connecticut, who offered to provide free project management services to the project if it goes forward.
So the other thing is too, we have a group here in Pawtucket that we, on our facilities, team work with. It's a student group. So would this be a group that you would be interested in kind of working with?
Of
They're a
course.
group that are working with our construction. It's for students and, in the same sort of type of, is it something that you would want to meet with them and kind of talk to them about their goals and things?
Absolutely, and of course. I want there to be major student involvement, and if you have, as commission members, board members, if you have groups that would be helpful to meet with to talk about this, that's what I want to do. It's exactly what I want to do.
And then the fundraising part, I'm very confused about the fundraising. Who does the fundraising? And would it come out of local companies?
There could be some that comes out of local companies, and there could be some connections that people start to say, oh, you know what, you should talk to this company. They may want to do this and whatnot. Let me give you an example. My father was involved in a Martin Luther King Foundation for 20, 30 years. And as much money as they raised, it was difficult to raise money because there's a lot of incredible causes out there. What I think makes this different is the TV. Is trying to get something on TV. And if I can produce an actual show, that TV and exposure on TV is what might help. So for example, the woman I'm working with, Lorna Lightfoot, that helped me begin this pitch deck, two of her clients that she works with all the time are Walmart and Lowe's. She's already spoken to one of the senior vice presidents at Lowe's who's interested in this project. That's the type of connections that I go start to pursue to raise the money to do this.
Right, but are our students being used to raise this money for this?
Are your students being used?
Yes,
No.
to raise this money.
No, they're not.
So they'll have nothing to do with the fundraising part at all.
That's correct.
They won't go to any companies. They won't go and speak at anything. The funds will directly come through you and your people.
That's correct, unless you wanted students to be part of something. Meaning students could be part of any part of this project that the board and the school board thought was appropriate. I mean, at some point, there would be releases that the kids would have to sign or their parents would sign to talk to us and tell us the story. In the end, this is going to be 44 minutes of television. So it's going to have to be interesting and fun and dynamic. And there's going to have to be some stories about the town and stories about a kid that maybe overcame some adversity. There's going to have to be something that's interesting and catchy to produce this television show. And that's why I have people that are qualified to do that. The woman, Kelly Spellman, she doesn't do the cooking part of the Rachel Ray Show. She does the human interest part of the Rachel Ray Show. She gets the interesting stories. She figures out the angle that could be most compelling. So students, the whole idea is that students would be super, super involved in this project.
Ms. Minow? Ms. Minow?
Okay, so,
Sorry.
No, I'm just going to say thank you.
the problem that I have, sorry, Mr. Savastano, but right now we are looking into a unified high school. And while I think it would be wonderful to do this work at Tolman High School, if that were done and we chose a unified high school, then the money that was put into that school would very possibly be a waste. Now, that's a significant amount of money, and I know it may not matter to developers and producers, but as a member of the school committee and part of the oversight of the financials of our district, I could not, in a good sense of mind, say, you can do that to their locker room and make your show, and possibly in 4 years have you tear it down or sell it to another developer for apartments or for it to become something other than a school. I know you mentioned high school, but we also have 3 middle schools that could use that type of investment. It has interesting and engaging students, and they're not going anywhere. Those schools are here. There's no question that they're not going to be here in 5 years. So this is just my opinion, and
Can I address that? Because I think it's an excellent point and it's a fair point. And I'm here to talk to you in a real way. There's no sense of avoiding issues. I'm aware of this issue. I would say a few things. First of all, if I was going to be using money from this town, then your point would be very well taken and say, look, we can't afford to waste any money, period. This wouldn't be money from Pawtucket. Secondly, it doesn't take away from the fact of the experience of doing this. And it would be doing it and then years of students enjoying it. So in a worst case scenario, in 5 years, you build a unified high school and you combined. So what? They had this experience. Thousands of kids got the benefit of it. You know, I was looking at one of the comparisons is this Extreme Home Makeover show. And everyone's seen that show. And it's great. It's great. And normally that show helps 6 people. And I don't want to help 6 people. I want to give an experience to high school kids that's going to affect thousands of kids, because you have 1,100 kids. So 225 are going to graduate, and there's going to be another 225 that are going to come in. So there are going to be thousands of kids using this locker room. And for me, if it happened, and 5 years from now, the school was torn down, I'd be like, I don't care at all. These kids had this amazing experience. Like, I actually made it happen. And now I'm in Jacksonville and making it happen there. And now I'm in Chicago and making it happen there. And it's amazing. So it doesn't take away from the fact that these kids would have this experience and thousands of kids would get the benefit of it.
Mr. Charbonneau?
I got to be honest. I'm surprised to hear you say that, because you may be in Jacksonville and Chicago, but I plan on being in Pawtucket, and to highlight a project that the chief proponent of it is okay if it's undone in 4 years, I find surprising.
It's not. My point is that the experience is there. So if this was a $54 million project, and you're going to say we're going to build a high school and then 4 years is going to be torn down, we're going to renovate locker rooms and we're going to do a beautiful job of it with LED lights and colorful and this, and showers that have some privacy and team rooms and whiteboards and all this different stuff. It's not a $54 million project.
What is your proposed budget on this?
I think that for both the boys and girls locker room, the physical part of it would be about $800,000.
So, and you're familiar with Tolman, you said, so you know the age of it.
I do.
If we were to say, okay, you go into the current locker room and start pulling fixtures, units, walls down, who's responsible for what you uncover there? There's got to be a huge contingency for that, I would suspect.
And I've spoken to an engineer at Colliers about that, and a lot of the repairs will be cosmetic. And you know, the idea is to knock down as few walls as possible. Obviously, there's issues about asbestos and all that stuff. He sat down with me and went through it and showed me what that would cost and how you remediate it and what you would need to do. And he figured that into the cost. And he told me $125 a square foot, he can make an absolutely beautiful locker room. And Colliers in Connecticut, who are the people that I spoke to, they renovate public high schools all the time. There's multi-million dollar high schools that they're doing all over Connecticut.
Right. And so why wouldn't you start from a presentation standpoint of having secured a commitment from Lowe's and Walmart and a producer with Rachel Ray or whoever else, and come to us and say, I have a $800,000 commitment from Walmart, I have a $200,000 commitment from Lowe's, we have a producer who's got a track record of success, because you're asking us really to approve what I'm hearing, your idea, but there's not a lot of meat there to say, okay. And I have a major reservation about spending almost $1 million on something we could conceivably be pulling out of there or knocking down in 4 years, regardless of where that money comes from.
I appreciate your concerns. The simple answer to the question is you can't get investors until you have an actual project. They don't want to invest in an idea. If I can code to them and say, look at this picture, look at this school, this is where we want to do it, it's real to them. I've done as much on this project as I can possibly do without a school. So the part that I need to then pursue all the avenues that I have, a celebrity host of this, of this, of this, I think I can get a celebrity host. I think I can get a host to say, hey, if you produce this show, I will host it. And I have people in mind.
But can you appreciate my concern as a Pawtucket School Committee member?
Absolutely.
Listening to you. Why not a school? Why not a high school in Connecticut?
But let me say this about that. Let me say this about that. I'm not asking for funds. All I'm saying is say yes and let me go do the hard work. Identify a few kids that would be involved in this project. Let me take some pictures. Let me go to Walmart and say, I want to renovate Tolman High School. I'm not asking for that much. And I'm certainly not asking for money. And I'm willing to go do all the hard work necessary. And you know what? There's not the right high school in Connecticut. If you want a completely frank answer, there's not the right school.
In regards to,
you know, a lot of the schools in the Connecticut inner city have gotten huge amounts of money. And they've been recent. The 4 or 5 that I first thought about have gotten $80 million new schools. New London High School's got a $107 million new school coming to it. The one I looked at in North Branford, I sat down with the principal. I went through it. They absolutely loved it. They said, Dan, we just got approval to knock down this entire high school. So when I talked to Drew about that, he said, hey, I coach at Tolman. They could use a locker room. They're really good people. I love the kids there. And I said, okay, let me reach out to them.
Mr. Knight?
Here's the problem I've got with doing it. The gym at Tolman is too small for basketball. The locker rooms are in that area. So you're not just doing locker rooms. So now when we do Tolman in 3 or 4 years, we're tearing everything out again. And we know that already. Why would we do something like that when we know it's going away, either if we renovate it or if we build a new single high school? It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, look, I'm not involved in all of those plans in terms of renovation. My thought is that if
Mr. Shapiro, just very, very quickly, so I see your LLC was incorporated a year ago.
That's right.
About a month after that, you presented before the Wyandanch Union United School Board. Did they turn this down? About a month after that, did they say no at that point?
At some point, they said they could move forward based on some renovation projects that they were planning.
And that was November 18th, 2020. So between November 18th, 2020 and now, about a year later, have you, I mean, just kind of like tried to find a school, like kind of like just presented to school boards, and it just hasn't been quite the right fit for several school boards?
There has to be the right fit, with the school. It's hard to get in front of the school board. There were some schools that are working on that were out of state that ended up, part of it is, as you understand, COVID has been this massive dominating force. So last year during COVID, no one really wants to hear about the pretty new fun locker room because they're trying to figure out ways to educate their students. So there were some major roadblocks there. Yeah, did I think Wyandanch was going to say yes? I did.
Yeah, okay. And so that, and I also see that there are this idea of a kind of a locker room makeover. I see that it has happened in other schools, but fully funded by, I see Gatorade sponsored one in New Orleans, and then the Extreme Makeover Home Edition sponsored one in Eldon, Iowa. But it looks like those were just one sponsor came in, kind of like we have Hasbro, and said, we're going to do this. And it wasn't to make a TV show, although I'm not sure about the Extreme Makeover Home Edition one, but it was just because they were like, we're going to redo these lockers. And I found it difficult that it took me so long to find this information because you don't have a website, you don't have anything that shows the vision or any example of how this would work. It's all just written up on a piece of paper. Right, so like I said, that's very difficult for me, and I know that I can't vote in favor of this tonight with only this information. But
the only thing that I would say is that I've worked on this idea for quite some time. I've spoken to people at ESPN, producers that love the idea, that think it can work. And if this same information that's on the pitch deck, et cetera, was on a website, it doesn't change the content of the information. I think the idea is good. I have a young woman, Lucy Marinelli, that's ready to do all of the Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all the things to promote the show once we get it going. So there's all these people and plans to move it forward once I get a school to say, sure.
But I'm correct, I looked up your LLC. You're the only person listed on that LLC right now?
Of course, I started a company so that if money came in, I had a place to put it in. Absolutely. And there's no money. All the people that have worked on this and put time into thinking about the website and all these different things, no one's gotten paid any money.
Mr. Knight?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Liberty's got to offer.
Yeah, Mr. Knight, I just wanted to ask you, when you were saying that locker rooms are going to be moved,
In the future,
well, we don't know, I think all of us here, we don't know if we're going to do a renovation at Tolman, if we're going to be building a new high school across the street, if it's going to be in 3 years, if it's going to be in 6 years or 8 years. So I think my point is that, why not take a shot? I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm going to be frank with you, but I'm going to be totally honest with you. We probably have the worst facility in the state at Tolman High, the gym, in the combination of the gym and the locker rooms. You have more people coming into that school from all over the state. You pretty much name any high school in the state, they've been in that gym. And we come in here, we have the smallest gym. We can't even shoot a three-pointer from a corner, it's so small. The locker rooms, I'm there in every game that we have, volleyball, basketball, whatever's in that gym. And I don't let the visitors, I don't let people go into our locker rooms to go to the bathroom. To be honest with you, it's too embarrassing.
I send them down the hall, I escort them down the hall. So if we did do a renovation, the only thing that we could really do, we could make the gym bigger, we could make the gym nicer with a new floor, and we could have new locker rooms. I think if the locker rooms are already there, that's where they're gonna have to stay. I even talked to the people, the engineers, and they said there's no way making the gym, expand, go any further. We also have 2 locker rooms underneath by the pool, and the football team uses one of them, the other one is not really used. It's not in great shape either. So we're in a need, and it does, people don't come in to see whatever, they come in to see athletic events, that's what the outside people see. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Can you clarify, who, you spoke to the engineers, our team at Colliers?
Yeah, the initial times when they were developing the blueprint, I said, hey, let me just throw out an idea. I said, I have no say in these things. I said, but is it possible, or how much of a cost would it be if we were gonna use $60 million to renovate Tolman? That was the initial, amount of money that I heard. Could we possibly knock out this particular wall going toward, collect tours, bring the gym out, and then still have the parking underneath, but people would drive under, and we could make the gym, bigger. Okay,
right.
Expand the gym. So that would just be so prohibitive that forget. That's it would eat up like almost all the money.
And the other thing was, and I get it, Frank, and I'm with you on I was screaming about full-size regulation gyms from the get-go. But I also heard Mr. Shapiro say that this is going to be mostly cosmetic. So if we're not letting visitors, opposing teams use the locker rooms because of their functioning condition or because of the way they look? Because I don't know that this addresses.
Yeah, both, and I think his thing, from what, the conversations I've had with Dan, and he could jump in, I think it will address both. Okay, first of all, you'll have a neat room that's clean, it looks nice, it looks appealing. The lockers themselves are, better for somebody to actually use. The toilet facilities and the showers, don't look like they're, I don't want to go anywhere close to those things. And then he talked about things like having a whiteboard, things like that. You could let teams, and even if it's not the visiting team, even if we send them down the hall to room 107, our teams could benefit from that. We've never been able to do that. Coach is standing there in a lousy locker room, he's got a clipboard, talking to the kids, and you go to other schools, and I've been in almost every high school around the state, and you see some amazing things. I'm hoping someday we have, but this is a small little part, in my opinion, at least, because again, we don't know where Tolman kids are going to be in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. We know how long these things take.
And I was talking about using the existing space. That's the only point I was trying to make about the cost. That there would be new floors and ceilings and walls and showers and all that stuff.
But you didn't say that when I asked, because my biggest concern is that building's 100 years old. When you start taking down ceilings and walls, that 800,000 budget can become $1.6 million or $2 million like that. And we've all experienced that here. So
I'm just telling you, I met with an engineer from Colliers. I described it, I showed him pictures, and he gave me what he thought for any, even in a school that's 40, 50 years old, even with these situations, he told me 120, even estimating high, $125 a square foot, and they can make a beautiful locker room that's state of the art.
We had a situation a couple of years ago where we fixed the coupler at, I think it was at Tolman, and they had major problem getting up through the stairway because of asbestos and everything else. These are problems that we know we're going to run into when we renovate. And it just kills me to spend money on something that may not be used number one. And number two, it's not gonna be there if we renovate. Trust me, it's not.
Motion.
Madam Chair, I'm noticing in this conversation, we're kind of saying a lot of the same things over and over. And I no disrespect to you, but we do have a really long agenda tonight. So if we could just kind of maybe wrap this up,
Yes.
I'd really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that, Ms. Grant.
Thank you.
Ms. Liz, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Manolo.
No.
Mr. Charbonneau,
No.
Ms. Grant,
No.
Mr. Knight,
No.
Mr. Larby,
No.
Mr. Marino,
No.
Ms. Doobie.
No. Motion fails unanimously. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, as I did say, we will take, just about a 10-minute break, and then we'll resume. If we're back. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah? Okay, so we will resume at 8:46. Did we take a roll call again? Looking at Mr. Knight, yeah, Ms. Lissy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo. Here. Mr. Charbonneau.
Here.
Ms. Grant. Here. Mr. Knight.
Here.
Mr. Larby.
Here.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Here. So next on our agenda is new business action, discussion item C, recommendation to terminate MOU, Pawtucket School Department, Pawtucket Teachers Alliance, CSI Schools. Dr. McWilliams.
Yes, Madam Chair and school committee members, I am making a recommendation after meeting with union leadership and also having weigh-in from both legal counsels to terminate the MOU, Pawtucket School Department, Pawtucket Teachers Alliance regarding the CSI schools. That would involve Goff, Slater, and Shea. You have that before you, and I believe that it was well intended when this was instituted several years back. However, we're in a different time now, and it's been very difficult to get teachers in our classrooms, and this had unintentional consequences by limiting the time that we can get teachers before our students due to the process.
There's been a motion to approve the termination of the MOU by Ms. Manolo. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Discussion. Mr. Knight.
I'm reading down on the bottom of this, and I noticed something that gives me a great deal of concern. Another instrument of like tenor and effect was executed by the chairperson and on the part of the alliance by its president when? Or is this just part of the end of this?
This is part of the actual closing, terminating this.
Can you say your question again?
It says that you're gonna sign it, but it doesn't have a place here. Oh, it's on the second page, okay. That's fine, I didn't get that far. I'm looking at, what other instrument was signed? Or is proposed that isn't here?
I believe that, Chair, if
I know.
Yeah, this is the instrument. This is
getting rid of it.
Right, and there needs to be a formal process to get rid of it. And I think that's the verbiage you're referring to at the bottom, Mr. Knight.
Oh, it reads, okay.
Any other questions on this? Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We'll move on to approval of submission to RIDE Facilities Initiative application.
This would be Mr. Devine.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So before you this evening, we have a packet that consists of about 13 applications. On October 14, 2021, the Department of Education had created a new initiative to help create facility equity between Rhode Island students. This pilot year, which is this year, the 21-22 year of this program, provides $10 million in funding available to 5 districts with housing aid reimbursements that are at a minimum of 65% or greater. And the 5 districts that it's been open to is Central Falls, Pawtucket, Providence, Woonsocket, and West Warwick. After receiving this opportunity, we immediately went to work on ideas for upgrades in the various schools that meet the requirements. Pawtucket's FY22 reimbursement rate is currently 83.7%. However, energy efficient and overall 15% MBE award projects may be eligible under this program for 100% reimbursement. Our goal is 100% reimbursement. Although the funding is limited to 10 million, Pawtucket easily identified over 13 million in desirable projects that meet the requirements of RIDE's initiative. We looked at projects that would reach as many students, staff, and community members, however, keeping the learning spaces as high preference. With that said, the 13 projects are listed in 8 priority order. In group discussion, the first priority is renovating 6 elementary school libraries into a 21st century media centers. The 6 schools in order are Cunningham, Little, Fallon, Kirvin, Variant, and Curtis. These 6 projects are budgeted at approximately $3.64 million. The remaining 7 priority projects are as follows. Second is the Jenks Auditorium renovation. Third would be a Slater Auditorium renovation. Fourth, a golf steam room expansion and renovation. Fifth would be a Varia multipurpose room renovation. Sixth would be Slater cafeteria renovations, and seventh would be the Slater gym renovation, and 8th is the golf gym renovation. We are recommending the projects presented and requesting your input and approval to submit to the Rhode Island Department of Education. And if I may say that, I know it sounds silly that, hey, there's only $10 million between everyone, but if you mention it's a pilot, they put the word pilot when they released it. And so that just means that they're testing it out. So maybe they're gonna, keep it going in the future. So we wanted to show just how much need Pawtucket had. And of course, we're greedy. We want Pawtucket to get it all. So that's why you see so many projects. I know that we would probably be approved as we were when we did the SBA project. I just don't know how much we would get. But again, we discussed it among the superintendent's office with the assistant superintendent's facilities, technology. We had the Colliers team working on things right away, getting pricing for us. So again, we want to hear your input and if you'll approve what we have before you.
Motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Mr. Nolan and Ms. Grant.
Do we have the capital in our reserve to handle it? If, say, we're only 85% funded by RIDE, we have the other capital available to do this?
We have capital, but our goal is 100%. I'm confident because if we get the 15% MBE, if we put that in the RFPs, I spoke with Colliers and the team, and they assured me that we could get that in the overall project, and also if any part of these projects include energy efficient, like with the light. So I'm confident that we could be really close to that 100%. But should we not be, there is some capital that we can certainly use.
Okay, my other question, the questionnaires that you have for all of the different projects, do they still have to be sent out?
Yeah, so what those are samples. We actually can tweak those. Those are, what we try to do is if you look on the back of one of the forms, there's a rubric for scoring. And so in that rubric and in some of the fact sheets, it had a requirement of bullet points with point values. So we tried to hit every point value. Those are going to be the superintendent has reviewed the surveys, but we can't add or change, and they would only go out if the projects are approved. We wouldn't be sending them out because let's just say this program continues on, we don't get everything now. We would want to send it out close to knowing that, hey, answer the survey, we are going to have this money. We don't want to put the survey out there for nothing, and then 3 years down the road and we have to survey again.
Okay, so we have a standard application that we are submitting, and then if that's approved.
This whole packet that you see before you is what we're asking for your permission to submit. And then they'll review it. I believe that there's a date layout in there. The applications are due on the 19th. I'm hoping that we're first tomorrow with submitting. And then the decision, I think, we'll know by December 20th or 21st on the award.
Ms. Grant?
So I have to say I'm very disappointed not to see anything included to be worked on for our special needs population.
So what we had to do is the project requires use of all children. So the Library Media Center would be for everybody. In other words, if you read the application and what its requirements is, it has to be inclusive of touching as many students in the building, and it has to be possibly touching the community. So the auditorium would be community. And of course, we would always include ADA accommodations for special needs. So this project application would not be geared towards one group of students. So the library media centers would be for all students.
Something, or maybe it's a question for Derek or Gianna. What's the turnaround time on getting these things moving?
Yeah, so we do get extra points. So the projects have to be done by December 2022, but you get extra points if you can get the project done by September 2022. And we want to shoot for September 22 because what are they? They're library media centers that we want children in on the first day of school. So that's why we're shooting for that. But I'm going to let them talk about how realistic that is.
Sure. So thank you for the question. Coming off of a very busy summer construction schedule, this would of course line us up for a very busy summer next summer. I think in terms of what ultimately is likely to be approved and then what we would need to do, we would probably look to you to immediately award the design portion of these projects, either through the MPA or through our house doctor agreement, and we'd want to get to work immediately. So we would realistically need to be bidding in springtime in order to make summer construction possible. We believe it is, but would want to talk to the group as we go through that process to ensure that we have a successful summer period next summer.
And Derek, one follow-up while you're up there, and I'm completely supportive of this. I think it's, the more we can do, the better. But from a financial standpoint, so we have the mechanism of the house doctor in place to kind of help speed along the process if need be. But does our current agreement with Collier's cover, in other words, I don't think this is going to be the last bucket of kind of pilot money that comes. So do we have to look at that at some point?
Potentially. So and potentially not. So the agreement with Collier's covers the funding that's in capital. So when we got the $234 million approval, 25 million of that is capital projects that Collier's is already under contract for. If funding is within that bucket, it's within the current Collier's contract. If not, if you were to bring additional capital funding to the table, then you could either go out for a new OPM or amend our contract to take on that additional work. I don't know that you would need to do that though as part of this, but I can let Melissa comment.
All right, okay, so I'll comment my 2 cents. So in doing my due diligence, just so you know, the first question I asked Rod is, would this count towards our current approvals? And yes, it does. So if it falls in the bucket of the school projected projects, because we had some health and safety in there, we can turn health and safety into some of these other facility initiatives. I'm sure that RIDE would approve it. So if it's within our approvals, then it would fall under that. But again, we have approvals that are open, so that's a whole other.
Okay.
So again, we're going to try to keep it within the approvals, so there'll be no adjustment.
Right. Yeah, we can get it within your approvals before under contract.
Mr. Knight?
There's a September 2022 deadline on this. Currently, you have not met the curb and shade deadline. what assurance can you give us that you'll meet the September 22?
Yeah, so really, ultimately, we are just here to facilitate, to try and make you successful. And we would put in place clauses to make best effort to make that possible with both your design team and contractor. But honestly, all we can do is facilitate the process and put together essentially carrots and sticks for your vendors to make that possible. I think
it's when they say completed, I think we can qualify under substantially complete. So if you had a punch list.
Yeah, as long as you can occupy the building, then essentially that's substantially complete, typically, in Ryan's eyes. But I do think, I guess the other piece of that, Mr. Knight, is I do think it's a great opportunity to receive state funding. In my opinion, this is being put forth in a very similar way with similar intent when your former governor, Governor Raimondo, put forth the Shovel Ready program. Pawtucket was one of the first recipients. I think we were probably the largest recipient. I remember you all receiving a giant, like, Publishers Clearinghouse type check. That's really what this is about. This is about getting money back out to communities quickly.
It's not.
Gina's not our governor anymore.
Right, that is true. Former.
We should still get a check. I see no other discussion. Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vanillo?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you said we will find out by December 20th, you think, thereabouts?
Yeah, I think it's December 21st around
Okay.
there. It was on the back of one of the
Okay, thank you.
papers. I'll keep you
next up-
posted.
Okay.
Thank you. I can't take all the credit. This team effort.
Approval of barrier, fire alarm, and fire sprinkler is up next.
Good evening. So the Pawtucket School Department is in receipt of proposal from Jensen Hughes for fire alarm and fire sprinkler design and construction administration at Verrier. And based on college review, it is recommended that Pawtucket School Department hires Jensen Hughes for a fixed fee of $57,000 for this project.
Then a motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau and seconded by Mr. Marino. Ms. Grant?
How many companies, did this go out for bid, or was this taken off of the list?
This was solicited directly from the House Doc list.
From what?
House Doc, the House Doc list,
Alright.
which this list was approved specifically for the 25 million project that Derek just mentioned for the 234 approval.
I just wanted to know if it was taken off that list or if they bid on it.
Charbonneau and then Mr. Knight.
Gianna, in Jensen Hughes' proposal, there's a section where they're not responsible for, in essence, if they come across hazardous material, asbestos, or anything to do with abatement. And I think it's kind of a boilerplate packet that they gave us, right? So that's applicable to every job.
Mhm.
So my question is, how do they provide design services if they don't know what they're up against? In other words, we may be designing a system that's not.
So in our budget, we usually we set aside a portion of the budget for hazardous material testing and abatement, which is not a part of the designer, the architect, or the engineering proposal.
Okay, so at what point, so we award Jensen Hughes, we award, and then we award again, and then we find out we have a problem?
We award Jensen Hughes, and we go at the same time to abatement, not abatement, hazmat consultant company, that they do some kind of testing, and they give us a report and a plan of action. And based on the report, we can see how much abatement we have, if it's minimal or major, and we move forward accordingly.
Okay, and that happens almost simultaneously
Yeah.
with their design work, so
Mhm.
that if there's an issue,
Mhm.
everybody's aware of it and we reassess at that point.
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mr. Knight?
My question is very simple. Did we just call Jensen Hughes or did we call other house doctor companies also?
We called Jensen Hughes, just Jensen Hughes, because they are the only fire alarm consultant and fire alarm system consultant on the house doc.
Yep, Mr. Charbonneau.
I don't know if it's done in the industry or not, but we're gonna award a few different packages to Jensen and Hughes. Did they bid it as a whole or did they price each?
No, actually, we asked them to price each one as a separate project.
Okay, thank you.
See no further discussion. Ms. Bliss, will you please take a roll call vote?
Ms. Bonello.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to Curtis Fire Alarm and Fire Sprinkler. There's a motion approved by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Bonello, Ms. Marino.
All right, a similar scope of work for Curtis. Pawtucket School Department is in receipt of a proposal from Jensen Hughes for the fire alarm and fire sprinkler design and construction administration services at Curtis Elementary School. Based on college review, it is recommended that Pawtucket School Department to hire Jensen Hughes for a fixed fee of $54,000 for this work.
One question,
Do we
Curtis.
have a motion to approve first? Did we already have one? Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, go.
Price difference of $3,000 because the schools are similar in size, is that?
Yes, very similar in size.
Okay.
One of them is, I have it. One of them is 48, one of them is 40. So, yeah, they're similar.
And Jana, just only because I feel like fire alarm and fire sprinkler is like just this thing that constantly comes up. And where are we with our fire alarm and fire sprinkler designs? I mean, do we have other buildings that are coming up soon? Is this something that we have to do in our buildings every few years?
So we have plan of action done by Jensen Hughes in 2018 that has fire code deficiencies throughout all Pawtucket School Department buildings. The school has been diligently working through, starting from 2018, from the plan of action report has been issued until today to addressing the fire code issues or like deficiencies, let's say. And we are now like at and it's going to be expiring in 2022. So most of the fire deficiencies have been addressed.
So how many are left?
So we have few left for golf
Okay.
that we're going to be talking about next.
Mhm.
We have addressed most of the issues for most of the schools with the security phase 1 and phase 2 for all deadbolt removal, for all closers. So what's left is very minor.
Okay. Is it possible that we could get a list of what's left?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you. We get that sent out to Ms. Liz, and she can send it out to the committee.
Yeah.
Of what fire upgrades we still have to do. Mr. Knight.
That's assuming that the fire code doesn't change again, which is what this is.
Okay.
A lot of this is things that changed the last few years.
Oh.
We were in compliance.
We have worked with the fire department, they get an update every year from us, giving them the list that you're asking for right now.
Yep.
When you see sprinkler and fire alarm, that basically, when you see a school that gets a sprinkler and fire alarm, that basically is taking care of everything that must be in place. Once you do fire alarm and sprinkler, you're pretty much done in that building. Like Mr. Knight said, almost a decade, unless they change something, but pretty much it solves many of our deficiencies. And the other stuff that we had to do was connected to phase 1 and 2 security, with the closers and stuff like that, fire rated doors. So we're pretty close to being done probably in summer, I believe.
Just like Mr. Knight said, just time for them to change it. Ms. Grant.
There's only something about the golf roof replacement, nothing about fire sprinklers on here about golf.
Mhm. In the recommendation letter, can we talk about
So
it?
we'll be on that in a couple, but I think it in the recommendation, it does mention it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, so it mentions it in that.
Mhm. Okay. Any other discussion? Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call vote.
Ms. Pinella?
Yes.
Mr. Chauvelin?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries unanimously. Next, we have approval of Potter Burns envelope repair.
All right, so the Pawtucket School Department is in receipt of a proposal from Toronto's Architects of Providence to complete the architectural services for the envelope repair work at Power Burns. After review of the attached proposal from Toronto Architects and its associated sub-consultants, Collier's project leaders recommend the approval of the aforementioned proposal for the fixed fee of $138,800.
And a motion to approve the approval of Potter Burns envelope repair by Mr. Charbonneau. It's seconded by Ms. Grant and Mr. Marino. Discussion. Mr. Charbonneau.
Jenna, in that packet, there's I'm assuming the BES, the 116,000, the building enclosure science. So the other 16,000 is, of this 138 is to Toronto Architects?
Correct.
But this is for, it says to complete the architectural services. So we're not addressing the issue, we're just designing, because you're gonna have to help me a long way on this one. If we're paying 138,000 just to design the outside, fixing the outside of the envelope, it seems to me that we shouldn't have any architectural services in that.
So, yeah, so Toronto, they're gonna hire BES as their consultant to go do the actual test, the water test, the mock-ups throughout the envelope of Power Burns. And based on the findings, they're gonna put together a report that Toronto will help to issue any architectural plans needed for the construction, for the actual repair.
Can we do to me, it seems like a lot of money for what we're gonna get. We know it's got leaks on the outside of the envelope. Why not just repoint everything and seal the brick and be done with it?
Yeah, so let me jump in on this one because I think those are great questions. So and I'm gonna step back to it just to go forward because I had side conversations, but I want everyone to remember context. So Potter Burns began during a moratorium. At the time it first was approved, it was health and safety projects only. As we were going through that, the former administration met with the Department of Ed, and the Department of Ed said, you need to do much more. And so we put much more money into the project. The project became much bigger, and we addressed the interior renovation. And I think the faculty have really enjoyed that. The question that Mr. Charbonneau is asking about now and what remains to be done is the envelope is 100 years old and was never properly addressed. Fixing it is actually going to be quite complicated. So we're projecting close to $1 million overall needing to be invested in the fix. This initial study is getting basically under Toronto's direction, a building enclosure specialist scientist essentially to really do diagnostic research and testing to truly understand what's happened over the 100 years and what we can do with modern construction technologies to fix it. So it is a significant investment in design, but going to a professional who really just does this, looks at building envelopes that are that old. The reason we think this is important is because during construction, we had some leaks from the envelope. Immediately after we opened, we have some leaks. And it's reasonable to believe, unless we really understand the building science of what's still happening, we could continue to have leaks. And so this is basically meant as the rest of that project to get the next 30 to 50 years out of that building.
Ms. Bonello.
So if I'm going to redesign my apartment, my house,
yes,
than the inside of my house, then why am I not going to look at the outside of the house and see what kind of destruction it's going to cause on all the money that I've already put into the house? Why wasn't this addressed?
Yeah, sure. So I think that's an excellent question, and that's why I lead it with the story about how we got here. So I think it's really important to remember that the initial project was, what do we absolutely need to do to get by? And that budget was probably around 7 to 9 million. It's been so long that the exact number escapes me. It became well in excess of 10 to do much more, but there was only so much money we could direct towards the school, and the focus was getting it ready. Admittedly, we didn't fully understand until we opened up all of the existing walls. So I don't know if everyone will remember or not, but basically all of the drywall along the perimeter had to come down. So I don't know that we could have realistically known just how bad the exterior envelope had deteriorated or what the problems might be. In addition, when we took that out, part of the challenges we encountered through the life of that project was really interesting construction in terms of the mishmash of materials that were basically used to put up the wall. So there was quite a bit of work done on the inside to get it ready, but a study was never really done from outside in of really the science behind those walls. And I think it was a function of us not knowing the budget and sort of the evolution of the project going from we are only doing emergencies to we are trying to address teaching and learning. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it makes sense, but no, it does not.
Sure.
Because we hire professionals, and I think that it should have at least been addressed at some point in time, which will lead to the question, are we going to do this at Potter Burns as well?
This is Potter. And no, I don't think,
At Matt Green.
And I don't think we've experienced any of the same issues at Nathaniel Green for whatever reason. And I think that's part of why it's so important to have an envelope expert really look at this. I guess I would argue you did complete the first phase of Potter Burns. It's now appropriate, and there is capital in your reserves sufficient to complete the second phase. And I think the time is now. So I would argue that we are doing what we needed to do. It's just happened in two pieces.
And I would say that my daughters would literally look outside and say it's raining and say, oh, so-and-so is going to be upset because all their stuff is going to get wet today. And that's really that's hard to hear for a school that we showcase as a model of construction. So I echo what Mr. Charbonneau said. It's a lot of money, but when we think about that, we do have this model school that we were able to get for, $11 million. I do think that additional possible $1 million is what we need to ensure that this school is not just really pretty on the inside, but is, like you said, going to actually be a sturdy school on the outside. And I was on the committee when this project was done, and we all, we didn't realize that this was a problem, and then it opened and it was immediately a problem. I remember those at the conversations as we were going through Nat Green were, let's make sure we're thinking about this with Nat Green.
Yes.
And I'm glad that we've learned from those past projects. Mr. Knight.
I seem to remember on a construction tour, when they were putting the windows in, they had major leaks that they were repairing then. They put windows around that building. And you're telling me they didn't seal them?
No, that's definitely not what I'm telling you, but it's a good question. So yes, there were immediate kind of quite disruptive leaking at some of the windows. And you may recall, as we were finishing the project, we did a first round of sort of emergency envelope repairs. What this next phase will do is understand the full building envelope and fix anything that remains that's a problem. But yes, we replaced absolutely every window in that building, and some of them did immediately start to have issues that we did address at the time.
One last question of legal counsel, if I could. Deidre, what's the threshold for the house doctor for using that program? Is there a dollar amount that we can't surpass in terms of a direct award like this? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you can just have that emailed out to the committee. Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Lisey, please take a roll call vote.
Ms. Vinolo. Yes. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't see how we can take a vote on this if we don't know if we're exceeding the amount allowed. I don't think you can.
I think we can take a vote, but I don't think you have to vote in favor.
You voted and approved it. If you're gonna approve it, and now you're finding out it's an illegal contract, I don't think we can do that.
There's a motion on the table. It's been seconded.
Excuse me, I object.
If you would
Point of
like,
order. Point of order. We need to know how much we're allowed to do.
okay, if you would like to move to table, you can.
I'll move the table.
Hearing no second, the table fails.
Excuse me,
Mr.
it's out of order then.
Okay, Mr. Charbonneau?
Do we have, Derek, do you have visibility? I want to say the number was like 150, sticks out in my head, but the more frequently we start using the house doctor, I want to make sure that.
Yeah, let me add a couple comments. So the 150 that you're recalling was an initial limit that the state had set on the master price agreement for architectural services, and I do believe that was the exact number because we had a bunch of negotiations around it. I am definitely not an attorney, so this is not legal advice, but in my opinion, there is no limit on the house doctor because it is something that we wrote on your behalf. It was publicly bid. It was a qualifications-based selection process where you all said you have the option now to use these pre-selected architects, if you will, to complete essentially health and safety projects. So I don't know that a limit exists. But again, that's not legal advice. I need your attorney to tell you that. But that's my opinion on it.
I would like to amend the motion to add that the approval will be contingent on remaining within any threshold limits.
Then a motion to amend by Ms. Vinolo. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Discussion on the amendment. Ms. Lisey, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vinolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. The amendment carries unanimously. The amended motion, no further discussion. Ms. Lisey, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vinolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We now have approval of the roof replacement.
Okay, so the Pawtucket School Department is in receipt of a proposal from Brewster Thornton Group Architects of Providence, Rhode Island to complete the architectural services for the roof replacement and fire code upgrades at Lyman B. Goff Middle School. After review of the attached proposal from Brewster Thornton and its associated sub-consultants, college project leaders recommend the approval of the aforementioned proposal for the fixed fee of $158,500.
And a motion to approve by Mr. Larby. It's been seconded by Mr. Marino. Mr. Knight, and then
$150,000.
would you like, Mr. Larby, would you like to amend your motion to parallel Ms. Vinolo's in?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Larby has made his motion to approve contingent on it not exceeding the house doctor limit. It's been seconded by Mr. Marino. Discussion at this point. Mr. Knight.
I'd like to ask the attorney to give her opinion on whether we can agree to a conditional contract like that.
As far as you
And if it exceeds it, how do we get out of a contract?
Well, I'm gonna go back and I'll look up and verify whether it runs bid, whether it's the MPA, and then I'll have the answer for you.
You'll let us know.
Yes.
You'll also let us know what the threshold is?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Just
Mr.
one
Charbonneau.
comment, Derek, I'm sorry, Gianna, the actual roof work is budgeted at $1.2 million?
Yes,
And we're comfortable that that's the budget for the roof?
that's the budget for the roof. Yes,
Because we spent a lot more at Curvin for the roof than $1.2 million. And Goff seems to me to be a more challenging roof to work on than Curvin.
that's right. That's replacing the flat roof, like the whole flat roof area, not the steep roof. Because the steep roof, we did a walkthrough with the architect's initial, like just preliminary to base their proposal on. The existing slope roof is out of a metal, zinc metal, which is in a good condition. It could last for more 20 years, so it doesn't need to be replaced at this point. So that's why this part took out of the proposal. So we are replacing the actual flat roof,
So it's not the whole roof at Goff.
not the whole roof. They're gonna do some repairs if there's any repairs for any part of the slope roof, plus cleaning.
Okay. Being on projects that are identified in the paperwork as being the roof at Goff. So where does it say in here that it's a small section of flat roof over the auditorium? And then a year from now or 2 years from now, when there's a packet in front of us saying roof work at Goff, and we get upset, it's because we're not. I've said enough.
Yeah. Understood.
So can we get an idea of what size roof at Goff is gonna cost us $1.2 million? Because it's not the whole building. So if you could send us the square footage that gets it to that $1.2 million.
Sure.
I'd like to echo Mr. Charbonneau said that, so this is, we're not, when we look at Goff and we look at everything that I would consider to be roof, we are not touching everything.
Yes, we're not touching the slope roof. We're touching all the flat roof. We're gonna replace all the flat roof.
But I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, I think that just answered my question. Anything that we look at that we see as flat is being replaced.
Yeah.
Anything that we look at that's like this is not being replaced.
Correct.
Isn't the body of the school a sloped roof? What section is flat, other than, I think, that the parking lot side, if I'm
All the parking
visualizing this?
side lot, yes. The steep roof is the facade, the main facade of the building. The letter U shape from the main facade of the building. It's kind of U shape. It goes around for both the right and left-hand side facades from both sides. Not all the way. It's like a U shape.
Motion to table.
Been a motion to table by Ms. Manolo. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Listy, please take a vote.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant, Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. The approval of Goff roof replacement has been tabled. We'll move on to school committee policies, first passage. The first item is ACE, out of district placement.
Second.
I, there's a motion to table by Mr. Larby. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call on that.
Ms. Pinello,
Yes.
Mr. Shabana,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Juby.
Yes, ACE out of district placements has been tabled. Next item is ACEA, section 504 policy. Mr. Larby.
Before you today, we have policy ACEA, foundation and basic commitments, section 504 policy. So in a policy subcommittee meeting in September, a policy ACE was brought before us to look over the language and to make it more inclusive. And while we looked over that policy, we made a decision as a group that we should review all our policies and look for ways to improve the language in our policies to be more inclusive to our community and students. So before you today, and the next policy as well, is just us starting from our A policies and just moving throughout our policy manual. So just about whenever we can, and lots of school committee meetings, we will be bringing forth some policies for revision. So this here before you, if you look at the policy, there is one correction that has been made, which was to replace using gender pronouns of he and she, and making it more inclusive. The language that has been replaced is in strikeout, and the language that we would like to move forward with is highlighted.
A motion to approve the amendment by Mr. Marino. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant and Ms. Bonolo, Mr. Knight, and Ms. Grant.
Has the union been consulting with this clause where we're sending employees with disabilities to appropriately accessible buildings?
I think I'm wrong policy.
That's ACE.
No, we're on ACE. We tabled the first one, Mr. Knight.
I misheard what he said.
Okay. Ms. Grant.
He said ACE, I'm sorry. Oh, ACE.
Number one, has a mental or physical impairment. Is there any better word we might be able to use? Maybe behavioral or something like evil? I'm just not, I don't know, it's just a suggestion, I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry, legal is going to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond briefly. So, has a mental or physical impairment and substantial limit going on leisure-like activities, that's actually a legal standard in section 504. So that's why.
So that is the identical language to the
That
legal
is,
standard.
yes, that's the standard, that someone has to meet in order to qualify for 504.
Thank you.
See no other discussion on this? Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call on the first passage of the amendment.
Ms. Pinello,
Yes.
Mr. Shabana,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Juby.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. We're now on AD, core beliefs and commitments. Mr. Larby.
So for this policy, AD, Foundation and Basic Commitments, core beliefs and commitments, it is in similar to the previous policy. We replaced a gender pronoun and replaced it with a more inclusive word.
Second.
And the motion to approve by Ms. Pinello was seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call vote.
Ms. Pinello,
Yes.
Mr. Shabana,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Juby.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. We're now on discussion items. RICAS assessment overview.
Yes,
Dr.
I'm
Blaine.
going to ask Assistant Superintendent Ramsey and Rabbit to come up, and they are going to walk us through an overview of our RICAS assessments. No, I had sent out all the data to you a few weeks back, but we can share that. Diana can share that tomorrow.
It's hard to see that.
Yeah.
It's better to have a printout going forward if you guys can see that. That's
Okay.
great.
We turn the lights up a little bit. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is going to be an overview of the state assessment. As shared with you, at one point, we will absolutely share this presentation because we make some correlations. And it's up here. Mr.
So, in this overview, we're going to talk about 3 types of state assessments. RICAS, which we give grades 3 through 8, both ELA and math. DLM, those are the dynamic learning maps. Those are given in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11 in ELA, math, and science and social studies. These are for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. A learning map is a network of sequenced learning targets. Often we think of learning as one skill building on another single skill. A dynamic learning map, by comparison, shows a learning landscape in which multiple skills are related to many other skills. Dynamic learning maps not only show the relationships between skills, but also show multiple learning pathways. Instead of assuming that all children learn a skill in the same way, allowing for multiple pathways recognizes that there are alternative ways to learn the same skill. By using dynamic learning maps as the basis for assessments, the DLM system will give teachers a clear view of each student's knowledge. And Wright instituted learning maps several years ago and has found that to be the best assessment for students with cognitive disabilities. And then we use the SAT, both ELA and math, for 11th grade. And so
a couple of weeks ago, our administrative team attended a RIDE workshop where RIDE overviewed the current state assessments as they relate to RIDE and released the, at that point, confidential information to all of us. They've indicated something called the COVID effect. Pretty much they've said that COVID has impacted the way students learn through the pandemic. It has impacted the way they've scored, the way they've learned, and the way they've performed. So really it's a reset. So they're looking at our data this year as a reset, a new baseline from which to grow. They've also, as we heard earlier, identified some very specific areas for us to be able to work on and develop and identify as a core team here and as a RIDE team to help us in each school that's been affected by what they're calling the COVID effect on teaching and learning. So it addressed participation and it addressed success and performance on these assessments. We are addressing these issues through RIDE. This is all RIDE-based data right now. The COVID impacted the student outcomes. There was a lower percentage rate across the state. There was a lower achievement rate across the state. And we're going to show you today how we correlate in performance and achievement with the state. The major takeaways from RIDE is that the participation rate declined by 10% in RIDE class, 9% for SATs as compared to the last time we did it pre-COVID. But their highlight, which they shared with us, was that our decline was much less in the state of Rhode Island than it was in our neighboring state of Massachusetts, which is typically highlighted as a comparative district, a comparative state that we should strive for. The state data.
So takeaway 1, student performance declined overall. So when we're looking at this, we can see that the students' performance declined across the state,
and math performance declined at twice the rate of ELA. How are we addressing this? How is Rhode Island as a whole addressing this? They convened a LEAP task force, and much of the work that we talked about in some of the help that we're getting from RIDE centers around the LEAP task force. So you'll hear more about that later. And they're building out additional resources with high quality out of district learning opportunities. Takeaway 2, participation rates declined. Not surprising. During COVID, we had students who were at home and we had students who were in school. We had to entice those students to come in to be tested. And I think as a district, we did incredibly well at doing that. But you'll see in the state that basically those participation rates declined. How is RIDE addressing this issue? They're providing funding for interim assessments to measure and monitor growth. And they're encouraging schools to assess students who do not participate in state assessments. Takeaway 3. I'm sorry. Yes. Let me go back. You can't hear me?
They're
Sorry.
encouraging people who didn't take the state assessment to take it now. So they're really working on showcasing and promoting the access to state assessments. So we have growth and we can show growth over time.
So here we have the RICATS ELA performance levels statewide, and you can see it compared to 2018, 2019. Remember, we skipped the assessment in 2020, and you can see 2021. When we move on to math, we can also see the statewide performance levels and what those levels again looked like in 2018, 2019, and 2021. In the SAT, we can see the participation rates. Like the other assessments, you can see that those participation rates dropped. And the percent of students meeting the college and career ready benchmarks in ELA and math dropped. But the decrease, as you can see in the SAT, the decrease was not as significant in the SAT as it was in RICAS. And the DLM, again, you can see the comparison, the percent of all students by achievement level.
So we shared the state data with you, give you a perspective of where. Sure, of course. The DLM or this one?
Just, am I correct that it's that made it better?
I can't hear
Am
you.
I correct that there were more students proficient?
You are correct.
After the pandemic and before the pandemic?
You are correct.
You are 100% correct, Chairperson Zuby, because you're going to see that in our own state data, in our own data, we mirror that in a lot of ways. That's one of the highlights. So the Pawtucket data, very specifically, they shared the Pawtucket profile with us, and again, you will be getting this so you can interact with this chart a little bit differently.
And they're also public. So if you were to look at the RIDE website, most of this data has been made public.
So there's no secret that the decline in Pawtucket, that we declined in Pawtucket, but the decline in Pawtucket mirrors the state decline almost identically. You know, the decline across ELA, the math, and the SATs were the same general percentages that the decline of the state of Rhode Island did. So I think overall, with our participation rates and our performance rates, we kind of held our own, which was, we have some work to do. I mean, there's a lot, right? But we have some work to do. But we held our own in comparison to our other districts across the state. Can we go back?
No, that's all right. One of the slides earlier said that students who were in person did better than students who were not in person.
That's a really great takeaway, because you know that we were pre-K and special tops until just about March. So that was a global standard, a global statement that RIDE made, but you can see with us holding our own and not really dipping that far below, that we held our own with Rhode Island, and we were only in person with pre-K and special tops until just about March.
So in that statement, they're not including Pawtucket? Like, who makes up the students?
Well, that was totally everything. That was global. So they didn't really zero in on Pawtucket in their global statement. So that was like Angelica doing essentially what we're doing right now.
Got it.
To the whole state and the community, right? So she had to answer to how the state did, and that was very brush stroke.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
But we were also told as a committee, and a lot of what we base on our kids going to school was that we had a very, very good DL program. So I think if we, I think we really shouldn't have excuses here. You know, I don't think our DL program was that good because we have slid. And
I'd like to make a comment.
sure.
You know, in order to actually look at what really transpired, you would have to had a qualitative or quantitative study and take a school that was totally distance learning and a school that was not distance learning in person, and be able to measure those together and then come up to a conclusion that we didn't have a good distance learning program or we did have a good distance learning program. The fact remains that we had a distance learning program that was appropriate and approved by the state, and we followed through with that program on the vote of the school committee until such time as January, when we recommended to go forward full in person. And the reason those decisions were made were because of health and safety for our students. So I do agree, we're not here to make excuses. What we're here to do is to say, this is where we are, this is our new baseline, and let's move forward, because we do have a plan to move forward.
Well, and I just want to say, with that being said, I think us as a committee need to determine, and you as a superintendent, on whether we can move forward and move up, because that's what this district needs to do.
Absolutely.
So
Agreed.
that's a big difference.
I think also that we're trying to throw our teachers and our students under the bus about distance learning with this. They did the best they could, and I'm very happy they did the best they could. Okay? Yeah, it dropped, but Massachusetts saw a more severe drop because they've been much better on the MCAS than we have. We need to get better, but we already knew that. I just want to make that clear.
This particular slide continues with the Pawtucket profile, and it does identify specific schools, which I acknowledge are hard to read here. But you can see that, for the most part, we did have some highlights that really stood out. So despite the COVID effect, despite what Bride has done as a slide, we had some schools that did show market gains in the middle of a global pandemic. Kirby McCabe in ELA, Curtis in ELA, and if you move over to the middle schools, both Jenks and Slater had slight gains in ELA during the global pandemic while on this baseline.
And the Curtis number, that, I believe Curtis was the school that was highlighted in the statewide presentation as one of the only schools that actually, I'm sorry, Kirby McCabe was highlighted as one of the only schools that gained in math during because a few schools gained in English, but
Correct.
Curtis gained in
And
math.
so the state has acknowledged that the biggest dip has been in math throughout the state. So their primary focus has been encouraging us not only to work on increasing our scores in the ELA, but also what are we doing about math. You're 100% right that Kirby actually increased in math as well. So the Pawtucket District's ELA RIDE test scores, I'm going to be doing English and Lee's going to be doing math. This is the same visual that you got from the state. This is over the 3 years rolling trend. You can see just from a visual perspective, even if you can't read the numbers so clearly, you can see that we did dip, but the scale score is not so far off from where it was before. That's in ELA by the district. And if we disaggregate that out by elementary, you can see how our different elementary schools do handle it, but this is a little bit of a misleading chart because it doesn't go straight down. So this is the grade in 2017-18, and you skip down to the grade here, 3 down, and then you skip down again. So it's not all, it's third grade, then, so the third grade is here, here, here. So if you had to do a study across the grade levels, you can see every third would be the correlated grade level. But by and large, we do have some highs and some lows in elementary ELA. Middle school ELA, same highs and lows. There's some significant highlights, but if we looked at the 2021 data, specifically look at here, the 7th and 8th and 6th, this is all 2021. And our data is highs and lows, and the middle schools did see that gain in Jenks and Slater, so they're all combined here.
So much like you saw in ELA, this is the district map. You can see that this chart is saying how we did across the district, all grades, and you can see the 3 years here. And you can see that much like the rest of the state, we did see a dip in math. And as we've said, math was more significant than ELA, almost twice as significant. In the elementary grades, we're seeing the same thing. You're seeing the 3 years in a row. So you're seeing third grade every third. So it's third grade in 2018, third grade in 2019, and then we go down to third grade in 2021. And we can see basically what we saw in the all schools is that we see that significant dip in 2021. So one of the places you'll hear later that we'll be concentrating a lot of our efforts will certainly be in math. So we can see middle school math as well. We see the same trends here as we did basically in ELA. I'm sorry, in district math. Going to the next slide. This is the SAT. Interestingly, the SAT, if you look at it, all grades Pawtucket, we held pretty well in that, in the ELA.
If we look at the average sales score, we actually went up.
I can't.
Correct.
Yeah, so on the far right, which is the average, right?
Oh, so sorry.
There you go, right there.
Tool I have here. Yes.
The
you're
far right
100%
is if they average all the scores.
You're correct, but you see that the reason we have.
Because we
that
have lower
score is
participation.
the students testing, right? But yes, imagine if we got more students in, how the SATs would have been in high
And then the district math SAT, we see basically the same as we saw in ELA, slight shift, but not as significant as we saw, but the participation rate was lower. And which makes sense, in high school, to entice the students to come in as they get older is a little bit more difficult.
So this is the DLM data, and you can definitely see that there was a gain this year with the ELA data for our students in the dynamic learning, which is a real highlight. Now, we can't share any data with regard to math and the other subject areas because the cell was too small, so it would be too identifiable, so it's not public data.
Right, so here again in the district DLM math, the data is suppressed. We suppress data always to ensure confidentiality when it's a small cell size.
So the major takeaways and highlights, we kind of said this throughout this presentation, so we won't repeat them, but really cause to celebrate is the increase in Curtis in math and ELA. We have increase in the DLM data. We have very good, better than the state participation rates in several of our schools and several of our grade levels. So now what happens? What's next? What do we do?
So here are Pawtucket's next steps. So we anticipated participation in the district support program with RIDE, which you approved this evening. So happy about that. We will continue with implementation of high quality K-12 curriculum materials, ELA, math, social studies, science, world language. Both our teachers and our administrators are part of the letters cohort. We are aligning to the curriculum frameworks, and that will be some of the work that we talked about earlier tonight. We have a partnership with instructional partners to conduct trend data walks with school groups. Some of those data walks are happening as early as tomorrow. Before and after school ramp up programs and content recovery. Those have proved to be very successful and very popular with parents. SEL for students. We have the Yale Ruler, we have Rethink Ed, Project Aware, Bradley Partnership, Youth Mental Health First Aid, and the SAMHSA Project Aware. We're participating in the Leadership Rhode Island coaching, and we're continuing our work with RTI. I just wanted to say one thing. For those of you, we refer to this LEAP all the time, and that's an acronym for Learning, Equity, Accelerated Pathways to Learning. LEAP.
I'd just like to highlight one other element, and I mean, you could go back to the slide, but one element was our disparities between different groups of students was one of the most uniform across the state, that we actually are closing the achievement gap. That doesn't mean that all of our students are performing great, but it means that all of our students are performing around the same level, compared with Providence, where their achievement gap is 70% of white students are performing on level and 8% of Hispanic students. We are at about 18, 16 with the different groups. So that was something that was pointed out to me in the presentation I received from RIDE.
You will send us. Absolutely. I'll send it to Diana right now.
I just want to say something. You know, I'm very disappointed in our last broadcast. I don't blame the teachers. The presentation, the state, the math, and this and that, but the kids in Pawtucket are our focus. And for the past 3 years, I base everything on the past 3 years. The past 3 years, we have not moved. I understand that we have and should have been able to support our students through this. I can share an analogy. Anything devastating can happen any day to any company. And the manager or the person in charge of that needs to be able. So I understand, the Angelica Fonte is, hey, we got a new baseline. But the point is, our kids are still not proficient in math. Our kids, some of our kids, a very, very, very small amount, can get into those good schools. That's the schools that they dreamed about since they were little. We need to do more for these kids. What happened to those summer programs we had this summer? We never gotten all these things were being put in place, school being put through all day long, kids being there till 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, because there was a problem with janitors or whatever. What was the, no one ever came back to us with a report on, if this is something that has to do. We need programs because our kids need to be able to compete. We're not, the world didn't stop, and the world's not going to stop, and we're going to continue to go. And then what's going to happen is we're going to come up with excuses for these kids. Oh, they were the COVID kids. Well, me personally, I want our kids in Pawtucket to know the COVID kids. I don't want us to come up with excuses for them. I want roll out new curriculum, we don't stop from number one. We start from the day this district started, and we keep moving forward. You know, I don't care about Barrington. I care about Pawtucket. And that's what we need to focus on. Hey, you know what? You can say more people could have participated in the SATs, but our numbers could have been lower. They could have done worse. We need to come up with solid, good plans. We don't need to you know, we're putting people in positions that are supposed to be fabulous and have all this experience. But then we need a year to roll stuff out. What is the problem? Why can't we engage these kids? Why can't we? Where has all this been? You know, I just don't understand. And it's really disturbing. It's really disturbing to be looked at as one of those school districts. And that's where we are. And that's where we're staying. COVID or no COVID, we need to move this district. I hate to say it, but we do. And I think we can highlight stuff, but come on. The overall fact is there's only one place to go in this district, and that's up. Because, and we've got to get it done. We really do. Because it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing.
Right.
I believe that we need to address two different things that were on this. First of all, SATs, some of the major universities are not requiring them anymore, number one. And we don't need that to be in our focus. And number two, we need to focus on the fact that in this whole state, I believe it's like 65% of our students require remedial English and math teaching. It's not just a Pawtucket problem. It's a statewide problem. And it's not only Rhode Island, it's Massachusetts, it's Connecticut, it's also everywhere. We are doing the best we can do, and we're trying to get better. And we've hired people that I believe are trying to do the best they can. And we can throw all the money in the world at them. We've got to get commitment from parents, students, to meet what our teachers do.
This is a discussion item only, so thank you so much for the presentation. The next item is American Rescue Plan Act ESSER 3.
Okay, I'm going to ask CFO Melissa Devine to come up and share with us what we know so far. And as it was mentioned earlier, we actually do have a meeting tomorrow.
Hi again. So ESSER 3 has been, our allotment for Pawtucket is about 31.877 million. The rollout is going to begin tomorrow morning. There is a presentation from RIDE with the RIASBO, the Rhode Island Business Group, and it's at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's expected to last about an hour and a half. They're going to go through some of the steps and requirements that they want to point out, and the applications are expected to be available by the end of the week, beginning of next week. Some of the information that I know of in ESSER 3 is it works a lot like some of the other grants that we have within the CRP, the Title Is, the IDEA, the ESSER 2. You know, all of those grants require a significant amount of work, not just budgeting, but there's requirements to meet certain priorities, especially in the ESSER funds. In ESSER 3, there's 6 priorities, and what that means, I don't know the specific priorities, but there are 6 different sub-funds that are set up. So you have to tie what you're doing to one of the 6 priorities. There's an earmark for 20% minimum requirement for learning loss. We can use it for facilities, health and safety related to the pandemic, and there was a survey done last summer that the superintendent rolled out to families and staff. I don't know what the response was. I don't know that there was a lot, but there was some ideas that were sent forward. I think that we'll have additional information for you once we see the release of the application and get the questions out there. Usually the business managers group has probably about 35 to 40 people that attend. I know that it's been extended to some of the district, other district staff. I know that Lisa Ramsey will be attending tomorrow. I think Lee maybe, Sarah. Sarah was, okay. So there's going to be a bunch of us. I know the controller, Steve Frediello, will be attending, but there is going to be more information tomorrow that we certainly can share with you once we get an understanding. Again, we've only been doing the reading. There has been talk about ESSA 3 for months. I want to say they released the allocation probably back in March, but it's been a slow go process. I mean, ESSA 2 was supposed to be out, in March or April, and we finally started having access to it. I think it was in late spring, maybe May, end of May, June. And those are just now finishing up getting approvals throughout the state. So I wish I had more to offer you. I'm happy to take questions.
I just wanted to add a couple of
Sure.
comments too. So you mentioned the different buckets, and the interesting thing with these applications, as with all grants, is they are federally guided, very specific, and you have to write a lot of narrative. So if you choose to do, as you saw, even with the SBA that you brought before, that's only very small considering the work that will have to go into these grants. You actually have to have evidence-based research assigned to every single thing that you do. And that would be the only way to get the, funds approved. So our goal would be, as soon as we get our hands on this application or more information tomorrow, and then the application with the specific guidelines, hopefully by Friday, maybe Monday, our team will be looking at that and bringing together, trying to piece them out into what areas are allowable, what evidence we have, and then we would want to bring a plan, to you so that you could see what the goal would be for use of these funds.
Now, I just want to mention that the plan, if they roll it out tomorrow and then Monday, we probably will only have 3 or 4 weeks to get it submitted. They don't give you a lot of time. I'm going to ensure that I ask that question as to when they're going to expect them back. I would say that they would probably give you no more than 1 month to do the applications and all the work that goes with it, provide the quotes, the MOU, samples. Again, as superintendent said, it was a bit of work, but compared to ESSA 3 or any of those federal grants, the facilities applications were much simpler. There was work that went into that, and it took a lot of time and effort, and we met multiple times. But this is, as all Title I, IDEA, they require different measures. But these, with the priorities, you have to tie everything, and you have to show evidence, and you have to explain how you're going to show evidence. It's a lot more detailed, but
And
again, I think it's about 4 weeks.
I have spoken with the superintendent, and with this timeline coming out, we will know very soon whether we need to have a special meeting to look at the full budget that the superintendent wants to submit for ESSA 3, or whether this can go to the December work session. And so as soon as we have that timeline, we will either pull the committee, or we'll know that we can put it on the December work session, or once RIDE tells us when it's due.
Just one question, Melissa. Can you find out specifically, and I don't know that it is or isn't allowed, but how much, if any, of this fund would be able to be allocated towards school construction?
Okay, I don't think, I will ask the question if there's a certain percentage, but the only thing I've read so far that has a percentage tied to it is the requirement for a minimum of 20% towards learning loss. But I will find out if there's any recommendation or expectation that we should not be going over about school improvement for health and safety.
Or new construction. I want to be sure that this money is used in the most efficient way, but also that it's not getting lumped into a potential project down the road as our contribution or our share of the expenditures.
Chair, could I make a point to that? So that's a really good point. However, these funds have an expiration date. And so I believe, and Melissa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's
24.
June 30th of 2024. So anything that we do that is in way of renovations or something to a school, it has to be completely done.
So one more question. Am I right in thinking this is a large bucket of money coming?
This is the largest bucket of money, yes.
So, because the number I've heard thrown around between 30 and 40 million.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for us to spend this in 2 years?
You actually not only have to spend it, but you actually have to allocate it. We have to, in order to submit, we have to, so one of the questions that I did ask today, earlier when we were meeting regarding the LEAP, we actually have to submit a full budget when we submit. We cannot say, okay, I want to do this and, I'll submit that. No, we have to, if we get 31.8 million, we have to prepare a budget for 31.8 million, submit it into the Excel grants, and then they will go through the process of approval. And I will say this, since many of us here in our district office have worked with federal grants, they'll go through their process. They might not get to an approval till March. Now you have even less limited time to complete a project by June
2024.
2024.
Am I correct that that is why many districts are talking about doing HVAC systems and windows with this?
Yes.
Because
if you can get it done, yes.
They feel like that's a good way to put money in something that you could conceivably do within a couple of years, and so that's what most districts have been talking about. For
thank you, because over the summer we didn't know, we were hearing about these funds, so we put out that survey on our website. We didn't get a great response. We could always push it out again, but again, we'll have very limited time. But the general consensus of the responses was they wanted to see HVACs in the schools that weren't being touched, or windows that weren't being touched.
And it could be for any building. It doesn't necessarily have to be all, it would be wherever you house staff, students, community. Right. It could be any building that the school district operates in.
And it's 45 million. Correct? It's 40.
No, so what it is it's 31.8 that we get allocated. Don't forget there's a holdback that they get. So the number was somewhere around the 40 that originally come, but they get to hold back. And again, I know they were up talking about 4 million is going to be earmarked for this other area. And where is that 4 million coming that they get? Is that in the holdback that they get to use? I'm not sure. But that 40 number was like a gross number. The 31.8 is what we'll see in our application when it first opened. Same thing with ESSA 2. There was some number given, and then they gave back some money. Actually, our number didn't change by much. It was like 20 grand. But
so could I also make another point, because you brought that up, Melissa? So when we talk about budgeting, and you talked about the 20% of the learning loss, so that's going to come to about 7 million. So my belief is that we just signed, well, we're going to sign an MOU you approved for us to enter into the district support program. That for us, up to 4 million, we're already going to cover that percentage. And so then we're going to get an additional match from RIDE.
Right, but I guess my concern with the MOU is when it's not like we're getting an additional 4 million. We have to come to the table with 4 million and they'll match it, right? Or did I not understand that correctly?
So out of the 31.8 million that we have to budget, up to 4 million would be allowable to take from that ESSER, and then up to whatever they would match. So they would match, send back to us in part of the district support program.
So it would be above the 31.8, as I understand
Right,
it.
so
So
it
it
would
would
be
be,
like
the 31.8 would
35,
earmark for
yeah.
4 million. And the 4 million they're talking about, if the school committee approves 4 million in a budget, within the guidelines of what the MOU is or, agreement, they'll match 4,000. So they're saying the plan that has to be put together is gonna cost the district 8 million, and then they'll send you 4 million. I don't know if they'll put it in a seller grant. I don't know if they'll be requested back by reimbursement basis, or they'll just allocate you 4 extra million. I'm not sure. They haven't said how that would work.
Exactly.
There's
Right.
still a lot of unknowns, but the only thing we do know is that we are allocated 31.8 million. We'll have to budget 31.8 million and submit it and have it ready to submit on the date that it's due, which we still do not know.
Right. I'm thinking no longer than 4 weeks out.
And I've spoken both with legal counsel and with the superintendent that this sum of money has never really been just dumped on school committees, and that we should have the superintendent present a budget just as we get a budget normally, and then different than our regular budget transfers. If going by the same threshold we have for budget transfers, we should approve ESSER budget transfers if items have to change in there. That it's essentially another budget we're managing, and that would be a way that that legal advised that we could track this money. So similarly, as we see the budget transfers report, we would see budget transfers that are under a threshold for ESSER, and then we would see an actual approval from us, budget transfers that exceed X number. Okay.
And those would not, those could very well stop before you have an approval, because I will tell you, they take a long time to approve, and every single one of these ESSER funds are earmarked to go back to March of 2020. So it could be very well that we'll be spending money that is not yet approved, because that's
generally how grants
that's how it works. We do that with the CRP. We get like, hey, you can move ahead. You have, approval to keep spending, and then we're going to go through. Same thing with ESSER too. I mean, so in other words, we essentially could have a budget that's before you and you are okay. We submit our application. We might not have approval, but the spending will be going on. I just want to make that.
Well, in order to meet those deadlines of, use of the money too, like I said, historically, if you follow how it's happened, we're usually 3 months out before we actually get a response.
So we would have purchased, they don't allow us to do transfers in the grant. You have to do amendments to the grant. And those amendments are only when they say you can amend. So you kind of have to make that we can bring a transfer before the committee. But I'm just trying to make the statement that you may approve it, but then they may not, or you may not approve it and they would have said, okay. So it's going to be a little bit of a timing thing. I think this is like a first for everyone in this instance with this kind of money. And obviously we'll certainly bring everything forth to you. I just wanted you to know about the timing, about how long it takes sometimes for RIDE to get back with approvals.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So the remaining discussion items on vendor reports, transfer reports, overtime report, overtime analysis report, and enrollment, suspension, expulsion report. Mr. Knight.
I have a question regarding a payment made to Barrington Schools, public schools. It says tuition, CTE tuition quarter 1 and 2.
Correct. That's school choice. Students are allowed
the CTE
to attend CTE in other school districts. And what happens is it gets approved by their superintendent and our superintendent, but you can't really say no because it's school choice. Parents have a right to, send their student to.
Are we transporting that student?
No, we do not transport them. No, we don't transport them to Barrington. Why would we transport them?
We do. We bus CTU students.
Within a certain, Barrington's within ours?
Right, so we wouldn't bus them to Charter, for instance.
Oh, okay.
We would bus these
Are you good, Joe?
I got one more question.
Okay.
What's CDW LLC?
That would be Hirsch, that you purchased from CDW. Chromebooks,
CDW, they're a technology company.
So I had a couple questions, and I've actually sent them out into the internet somewhere. So they were to find out what CTE programs were covered in other districts, because we're expanding on CTE. So we're expecting an answer on that. The other question I had on
Water?
yeah, was water and what kind of savings we had installed and what kind of savings we can have. And John, you don't have to answer us right now. You can just send us an email if that's okay to make it quicker. The other one was on Z-Space because that was like $750,000. So I was curious what the warranty on any products that we had on that, and if there was going to be an annual stipend that we would have to pay to use their products. The other questions I had were on the overtime report, which I had asked Melissa if she could condense it to say all custodians, so we could look at just the custodians, just the maintenance people, so we could compare where the spending was in certain buckets to make it easier. The final one that I asked was for, on the disciplinary, if we could get the days out of school and the days in school suspensions, so we know how much school time our students are losing through suspension. Because if it's in school suspension, we have programs that will teach them. But if it's at home suspensions, they're on their own. So I want to know,
We can get out.
be able to see what kind of time our students are losing through disciplinary suspensions.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that's
So
it for me.
I just wanted to be clear. So we will do that for, Hirsch, we can do that for the next month's report, okay? And then we will send to Diana, who will send out to the whole committee, the information on Z-Space and information on the water with John, and then information on the CTE program. So we'll all get that to Diana and she'll send out to the whole committee.
Thank you.
So we're talking about the suspension.
Yep, that's one of the things, yep.
So 2019 to 2020, we had 47 kids at one school suspended for assault and battery on another kid.
What?
Is that true?
2019, 2020.
Last page, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's accepted.
Oh, you're on the infraction type.
Right.
Yes,
Middle school. At all of our middle schools?
yes, that's correct.
Yep, oh, it's there.
I see it.
Mhm. Any other questions on the discussion items? Okay. We will move past executive session as we do not need to have one. And we will move on to superintendent updates.
So I just want to thank everyone that's still here for the long night. We all appreciate you. And I want to thank everyone who participated in bringing some presentations to us this evening, and have a great night.
Okay, school committee member updates. Ms. Manolo.
Okay, I just want to say it's really nice to be back. I really miss doing what we do. The only other thing I have is on November 18th, Aramark will be serving all our students Thanksgiving meal, turkey, stuffing, vegetables, and it's farm to table. And they said we are welcome to join them. We can carve, we can serve, and then we can enjoy a meal with the students. They just want to know what school we would like to attend. And if we could, you can either let me know or you can let Josh know. Or
All the schools are
Diana.
doing it?
Yes. All schools, district-wide, everybody's having a Thanksgiving dinner. And that's November 18th, and you're all welcome to join.
And some of us will be serving.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. Mr. Charbonneau.
Good night, everyone.
Mr. Larby.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.
I just have one question regarding the Thanksgiving dinner.
Is
What are we gonna
it's
do to
over?
all the kids that are sleeping in class after eating turkey?
Ms. Grant.
I think I've said enough tonight.
Okay, Mr. Rena.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, I'm hoping that ride does us a solid, and I can say a happy Thanksgiving to you all, and I can say a happy Hanukkah to you all, and see you all in December. Oh, motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Larby, seconded by Ms. Manola. We are adjourned at 10:26.